This week, Time Trumpet looks back at 2007, the year Charlotte Church vomited herself inside out.
You can imagine, can't you?
It's cold out
And when there was an outcry at the BBC's new weather graphics that used actual human blood.
And it stays that way into the early part of next week as well. Mind you, some brightness as we go.
And we look back at this madman and how he ended up 20 years later dementedly wandering round the bins of downtown Baghdad.
Further down the bendy bus. Have your money ready, please.
We're now in the year 2031. Apart from the 2 billion people wiped out by flooding, it's an era of unparalleled progress. We're able to use meat as a source of energy. Special airlines now allow animals to migrate comfortably by commercial flight. But what was it like 30 years ago, in the first decade of the 21st century?
What was petrol about? Imagine, it smelt so bad. If you've ever tried to sniff petrol, you'll know what I'm talking about. It stinks.
You had your phone and or you're pushing your wheelbarrow and you think, you know, this is great, these are the times to be alive.
One man who hated being alive in 2007 was Tony Blair. Privately, he was locked in a bitter struggle with his Chancellor, Gordon Brown. While publicly, he was deeply unpopular. Stage-managed photo opportunities became embarrassing displays of contempt.
Come and shake my hand, you big English shit.
Members of the public were prepared to be rude to his face. And even his backbenchers were against him, as recounted in this slightly revamped Newsnight show.
Our political editor, Martha Carney, is here now. They put an awful lot of effort into winning this vote, didn't they?
They certainly did. I mean, Tony Blair was ringing a lot of people himself, for example.
What went wrong?
Tony Blair made it an issue of principle for him.
What are going to be the consequences then?
Well, you've got, you know, nearly 50 Labour rebels, people prepared not to toe the party line.
Martha, thank you.
By the end of 2007, the Blair-Brown conflict spilled into the public arena. Sometimes Blair would make gun-pointing gestures at Brown, as if trying to imply he would love to shoot him through the eyes and into his head. Sometimes his underhand techniques on Brown were picked up by the microphones. Blair would pay cameramen to get their cocks out while Brown was speaking.
Parliament, we booed it,
But Brown never cracked. His eye was always on the prize, the premiership.
He really wanted it. By the end, he just had this look in his eye like a sailor on shore leave banging on the door of a boarded-up brothel.
Meanwhile, Brown gave as good as he got. His speeches were full of coded references to his belief it was time for Blair to make way.
What does he really mean by that? To know, you have to crack the political code.
I tell you, it's high time Tony Blair was put into a retirement home, and I finally got my hands on his fucking job.
30 years on, I caught up with someone who knew both Blair and Brown, Claire Short. So now you worked with both of them for a long time. You got to know both of them very well.
Yes, I did, yes.
What would you say was the sort of differences between the two of them?
Unfortunately, Gordon never had the common touch Tony did. To put it bluntly, Tony could shit in your hat and you'd want to buy him a drink, whereas Gordon would buy you a drink and you'd want to go off and shit in his hat. And if he didn't have a hat on him, you'd go off and buy one just so you could shit in it.
Time Trumpet will be catching up with people who were famous 30 years ago.
What are you talking about?
People like Sebastian Coe. And we'll also be talking to today's leading cultural commentators to find out what life was like then. Maybe we could start by looking at why the years 2005 to 2010 were so seminal. Sorry, are you about to speak?
No,
Okay.
I wasn't.
And ask ourselves, what was it about them that had an impact on the next 50 years? You know, in a sentence.
They were special.
Why do you think? Why? No, I'll scrub that. I'm going to save that question for someone else.
Okay.
Talk about television.
Well,
my favourite thing ever, Top of the Pops 2 title sequence. I mean, the first thing you'd hear is this guitar playing the riff from Led Zeppelin's Whole Lotta Love. Then in time with the riff, the screen would change colour.
And within that colour, spirals of a darker hue would appear.
First off, the screen went yellow with spirals pulsing from the bottom left of the screen.
Then it would go red with a pulse from the middle right.
Mid-left blue.
Top right orange.
Bottom left scarlet.
Bottom centre green.
Top centre red.
Then there was a wipe from right to left with blue.
But the spirals were emanating from the end of the wipe on the left.
As a counterpoint, there was an orange wipe in the other direction, right to left.
And again, the spirals emanated from the end of the wipe,
i.e. top right.
Then it went green from the bottom of the screen.
Then a red wipe from right to left, but this time the spirals pulsed from the start of the wipe.
And then an iris out to show the titles.
Black on grey with a 2 in orange. Perfect.
In the world of professional football, you're considered a bit of a loner, aren't you?
Yeah. That's because I am.
OK, let's talk a bit about...
You don't want to talk about me?
No.
My lonely life?
No. Let's talk about the terrible incident.
I think they would make good television. Talk about people are interested in what I do.
Yes, but for just now, we really just want simple sound bites out of you.
Of all the bad incidents of that period, the worst incident was the Charlotte Church incident.
I began to feel a bit weird and, you know, dizzy and stuff. And I started retching and retching and retching. And I felt like the skin detached from my body. And I looked down and my stomach was hanging out of my mouth. So I thought, that's not going to do my voice any good, is it? I kept on puking. And then I got this really weird taste. I could taste like Bacardi breezers, white wine, lager, my leg, my kidneys, my liver, and lots of fat.
Well, she was out on a night with her girls and she just started puking. She didn't stop. I mean, sometimes I go for a wee and I think I'm never going to stop, but I'm not weeing myself inside out. I'm just having a wee.
In the papers, it's like, oh, Charlotte Church, you know, the Welsh magpie, she's vomited herself inside out. But it didn't stop her working. And if you remember that year's Royal Variety performance, she went up there with her heart hanging out, with her intestines flung over her shoulder, with major organs hanging down around her waist like a kind of meat grass skirt, and she did a medley of I Don't Know How to Love Him, something from Phantom of the Opera and the JCB song, and it was the best received thing of the night, even though she was in that kind of state.
I woke up 3 days later in the infirmary and I had metal around my mouth. Oh.
Out of interest, what could you see?
Well, I couldn't remember a lot, you see. And, of course, the skin was on the inside as well, you know. And my boobs were poking me in the eye from the inside.
It was definitely a watershed moment for the youth of Britain. You know, when people realised what had happened, they did say to themselves, you know, no way do I want to taste my own lungs slithering out my throat.
A lot of people found Charlotte Church's inverted appearance disgusting.
Well...
And literally vomit-inducing.
Yeah, all right. What's more disgusting, right? A woman on stage with her organs hanging outside her body, with her skin all inside out, singing Andrew Lloyd Webber, while thousands of people in the audience and at home vomit, or the institution of the monarchy?
I would say the Inside Out Woman, Andrew Lloyd Webber medley song vomit incident.
Well, when you say it back to me like that, I agree with you. But what I was trying to make a kind of clever point, and I wasn't expecting you to meet that head on with logic.
You got a visitor, didn't you?
I did. David Cameron came to see me, but there was no good him talking to me because my head was still inside my stomach.
Now, David Cameron, he was... do you remember David Cameron? Perhaps you don't, I don't know.
Jog my...
David Cameron, he had a sort of melted face. He had a face like a whoopee cushion before someone had sat in it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And a mouth that made the sort of shape the aperture to a whoopee cushion would make once you did sit on it. Do you not remember him at all?
No. No,
okay,
I don't.
that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
I would have thought I would have done.
That's all right.
Okay.
Okay. No, we can talk about something else. You're absolutely sure? Absolutely sure you hadn't heard of David Cameron? That's the face!
We must look ourselves in the eye and make this pledge never, ever again.
Well, I nodded my head, but I knew he was committing oratorical suicide. We must look ourselves in the eye. How do you look yourself in the eye?
Well, with a mirror, maybe?
Oh, yes.
Cameron was great. He would use any means necessary to come over as appealing.
At one point, I went around for a month being black. Then the BNP went up in popularity, so I went around telling everyone how much I hated it.
Real change isn't just about policies, or even, dare I say it, having a young, vigorous, energetic leader, although, come to think of it, it's not such a bad idea.
Credit where it's due. David nailed that line. I was pissing myself.
With pressure from Cameron and Brown, Blair went mad. Whenever he appeared in front of large numbers of people, he thought he could see ghosts.
It can be, for example, because you feel passionately about certain things.
It was in the hospitality room, quite late, and he'd been on talking about, I think it was about Gordon Brown, actually. And he said to me, he said, June, do you believe in angels? And I thought, yeah, why not, you know. And he said, can you see that one over there? I said, where? He said, over there, by the nibbles. By what nibbles? I said, there were no nibbles. There weren't any nibbles.
I cooked for him one night, and he got all the mash, and he piled it up and made a huge head of Gordon Brown, right? And then he started kissing it and then punching it, and I mean, there was mash everywhere.
In order to free up traffic in town centres, he decided that everyone should be given their own bus.
He thought that all cars should be tarmacked, so that if they were in a gridlock, then other cars could literally go on top of them and continue their journey that way.
Listen, let me turn that question around, okay? Is it mad to care about the security of the country? Is it mad to put more money into public services than any other government? Is it mad to grab a guy by the balls and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze until he cries out in pain? If that's mad, then guilty as charged. I'm mad too.
Hello, it's a north-south fixture tonight.
Blair's policy of trying to get as many people into university as possible had many unforeseen consequences.
I'm from Jersey and I'm studying medicine.
Hi, I'm Katie Lee. I live in West Yorkshire and I'm reading physics and philosophy.
My name is Jonathan Hall. I'm from Putney and I'm reading for an MBA.
I'm Edwin Famous from New York City. I'm also reading for an MBA.
I'm from Suffolk and I'm reading medicine.
I'm also studying medicine.
Chemistry.
Biology.
History.
Maths.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
We could see a little bit more snow, just a dusting in some places, up over the highest ground of the Downs perhaps, and certainly pushing westwards into the Mendips. Could see a covering and maybe a couple of centimetres.
We've all been there. You're throwing a dinner party, important people coming around, important that it goes right. You're about to serve the pavlova, and bang, something falls on it from above.
Beautiful pavlova destroyed.
Well, worry no more.
We present Cake Shield.
Anything that falls from above now, whether it's cups, plates, whatever, will deflect off the shield and go to the safety of the floor. The pavlova will not be touched.
Could still have the pavlova crushing incident, though, couldn't you?
No.
How?
How?
Cake Shield.
I mean, it's perfect. It's the ideal thing for cakes, cheesecakes, cream cakes, pavlovas.
Black Forest Gatto, Swiss rolls.
Year 1, what was the turnover?
Apple. An apple turnover.
Year 2 turnover?
Apple again.
Apple, yeah. And last year?
Last year, as I said, was the pavlova incident. It's perfect. It's a shield for cakes.
I've got one of these in my house.
Excuse me.
You can't have one of these in your house.
This is the prototype.
No, I've got one of these in my house.
You can't have one of these in your house, okay?
You actually don't.
Have you got one of these in your house? Do you want one of them?
I've had everything done. Nips, tucks, bone grafts, brain pads, and I had phalangeoplasty. And I've had my eyes chinked and de-chinked. I've had a nasal rectal interchange. I've had buckets of Botox. And still everybody recognises me. I mean, it's uncanny.
Welcome back to Spicy Slicey.
Robinson became a role model for children, and in 2008 the BBC controversially launched a children's plastic surgery show.
He's had himself a stubble implant. Do we like that, guys? Yeah. It's fantastic, isn't it? Yes. This is from Michael. He sent us a little note saying, I'm a pretty lady now.
Isn't it a sad day? When you meet a child you think is a Burns victim, and she says, I made myself look like you, Annie.
Now, I know some of you in the audience have had some great work done. Let's speak to you. What's your name?
Max.
Max, what have you got surgery for?
I've been made to look like Patrick Kilty.
Patrick Kilty, eat your heart out. I think Max is after your job.
Kids could have bladder implants so that they can urinate in different flavours and colours.
That's not right, is it?
It's not right.
And this is Lucia. Lucia, thank you so much for coming on the show today, hon. Lucia is going to have live cosmetic surgery done right here on the Spicy Slicey. Tell us, what are you going to do?
I'm going to have my chin enhanced so I look like Claire Balding.
Fantastic. Give her a round of applause. Remember, guys, a bit of advice to you. If you are thinking about resetting your jaw, remember, one hard crack with a hammer is far better than several small ones.
You know, for a while, you could buy the kit in Toys R Us. It was called the Anne Robinson Face Changer. Well, it was just a branded knife, actually. They had to ban it after about a month.
Let's talk about sport.
Good. Great. What sport would you like to talk about?
What would you like to talk about?
Football?
Okay.
I'm not saying...
Okay.
No, I'm joking, because I know that
What do you think of David Beckham's vagina?
I think it's good. I like it. I've played with it. And...
You've... Pardon?
I know David very well.
Yeah.
And I like it. I think it's great.
In 2007, footballer and trendsetter David Beckham had a real woman's vagina stitched into his arm. Does everyone ask you about the vagina?
Well, a few birds do, yeah. You know, when I go out, a few birds come up to me and ask about it. I mean, I don't always show it, you know what I mean? I'm a bit careful. But I'm quite proud of it.
Have any other sports personalities had...
Yeah, well, Ronaldo, he had nipples put on his knees. And, I mean, women loved it.
Whose vagina was it?
I don't know. All I know was that she didn't want it anymore.
There were rumours that he was pregnant, but he told the press it was just a case of fat arm.
No, well, I heard he doesn't wash it, and he keeps his car keys in it.
Did other players treat you differently in the dressing room?
Yeah, I had a few comments, and I just get my smack around the edge, you know, that worked.
David was always wild, wasn't he?
Yes.
He's always, I'll be the first one to have Jesus Christ on my neck, or to have a vagina on my arm.
Have you ever accidentally got it caught or anything?
Oh, yeah. Well, the other day I got it caught in a door, and my God, did it hurt. I mean, you've got to be very careful. And also, when I put my clothes on, I've got to be very careful about how I lay the shirt on, because you mustn't brush it too much. Otherwise, you know, you can either hurt or you can stimulate yourself. You're not sure which.
A lot of people were saying to him, why the arm? Why the arm, David?
Well, where else could he have it?
Forehead?
Well, you know, he's not a gymnast, is he? He's a footballer.
Can you remember what was the most fashionable thing you ever wore?
Oh, God. I think that was the placenta of the white Siberian tiger. I wore it to the premiere of Mission Impossible 6. I wore it as a little beret. Very stylish.
OK, whip your sleeve up. Let's have a look.
Yeah, I'm proud of it. I will.
Do you look up to him?
Not now. I did when I was a child, of course. He was the first one to teach me how to do a header. And then many years ago, I kept track. But now, of course not. He's, you know, he doesn't. I don't look up to. I don't look up to him. Okay, we play football. It doesn't mean that all footballers know each other or like each other. It's like, where are you from? I am from China. Oh, do you know Mr. Lee, who has an acupuncture in Camden High Street? That's an insult, isn't it?
Yes, but, well, it's slightly different. I mean, there are, I can't remember how many million Chinese people. There's, what, 100 million or so?
10 million.
10 million?
10 million million. 10 million million.
10 million million?
10 million million. That is a lot of people.
Yes. No, whereas footballers, there are, in terms of professional footballers in Europe, say, there must be, what, about 1,000, 1,050?
1,050?
And in any one year, you will all play against each other.
Yeah, of course.
Right. Now, you can't say that in any one year...
Yes.
100 million Chinese people will bump into each other.
Of course, that's why it's an insult to tell them if you know Mr. Lee from the acupuncture.
Exactly, but it's not so much of an insult to expect you to know another footballer.
I am not Chinese. I don't know what you're talking about here.
So it could be quite tricky here, first thing in the morning.
Special effects were very primitive in the early parts of the 21st century. For example, in the popular soap opera EastEnders, all the glasses and bottles in the Queen Vic pub were shot in a special CGI studio away from the actors.
Have you tried in the past having the actors act while holding the glasses? And
other soap operas do, in fact, do that. But you end up sometimes with spillages on set and with actors getting sort of crotchety with each other. We describe it as we're herding zombies, just in terms of the actors sort of just being quite difficult to control.
Yeah, but I just don't know.
That's Pat Butcher's wig. If we can shoot that all first with the green screen, then obviously she doesn't have to wear it during shooting the scenes, and so it gives her one less thing to worry about, and she can do what she does best.
Okay. And acting. And why do you shoot all the drinks separately?
Well, what we do is we shoot all of the sort of glasses and things in front of the green screen, and then with the leotards, and then we map that onto the footage that we've got of the actors, so that it looks like the actors are holding the drinks.
No, that's how you do it, but why do you do it like that?
I mean, that's just this is how we've always done it,
and then you film the actors.
Then we film the actors, yes. Well, we do that in Bristol. Then all the footage from that is couriered down, and then that's matched up with this.
Everyone, can I have your attention, please?
That's a very expensive way of doing it, isn't it?
Yes, yes, incredibly expensive.
If your glasses are charged, I'd like to raise a toast to love and marriage.
To love and marriage. Go.
Love and marriage.
One of the most shocking stories from that period was the revelation that Prince Charles's wife Camilla turned out to have been Channel 4 prankster Justin Lee Collins all the time. Prince Charles's reaction came in for comment.
Apparently, when, you know, the rug was pulled, he laughed and he said, "Fair enough. I partly question the last 60 years, but that is a good joke, and you have followed it through."
It was quite interesting to see the expression on Charles's face. It was kind of a mixture of confusion and excitement.
The Camilla Collins scandal was just part of a growing disrespect for figures in authority.
Let's go to our first question from Matthew Gratian, please.
How would the panel react if I said the first person to speak is an arsehole?
Boris Johnson.
Well, arsehole.
Well, what I'm trying to say
But first, here's our political editor, Martha Carney.
It's not really a coincidence that some of the ideas and strategy used by the New Labour Islington set have commuted across London here to David Cameron's Notting Hill. After all, the people around him have studied Blair intensely for years.
Well, we had this idea of filming David talking to the women who work in Asda.
Tell us a bit about how that works.
So we sat him down with them, and he managed to mask his contempt. It was touch and go, though.
And the last thing sometimes you want to do is go shopping straight after you've finished a long day at work.
Yeah.
So if
We gave David one of those England bracelets that morning. You know, we thought he'd look patriotic and sporting, and particularly if he was talking to the type of scum who liked the game. Anyway, the trouble was the bracelet slipped down, but quick as a shot, I was up behind the camera and I signalled to him to try and move it down onto his wrist so that the camera could pick it up.
policies, we wouldn't do that as a company anyway, but it's about, you know, meeting the customers' needs and obviously providing jobs for...
And good enough, David did it without anybody spotting it. It was terrific. Darren Brown, eat your heart out.
While Cameron had a good eye for the media moment, Tony Blair was caught between the teeth of opposition from his own Chancellor, but also from the very same Cameron who had a good eye for the media. It soon became apparent that Cameron was copying everything that had previously worked well for Blair, word for word.
It's a tremendous honour and privilege. It is a huge privilege and an honour.
Gesture for gesture.
Everyone could see it. It was like single glazing. The way he used to hold his hands in front of his tits like that.
By taking the tough decisions, tough long-term decisions, Punch and Judy, the Punch and Judy politics.
You should dig up the archive on Desert Island Discs. Cameron copied all of Tony's choices except for the Foo Fighters track.
Values don't change, but times do. That is the change that I'm talking about. We can change public services. Public services, education. Education. Specialist schools, special schools. In China and India. India and China, 8 years, 8 years. Aspirations, aspiration. And courage. Courage. Million, fringe, never, change, again. In turn, but time, change. Change is marching on again. That's got to change. Change makers.
People said Cameron modelled himself on Blair, and he did, of course. I mean, when he became Prime Minister, people said, well, hang on, Tony had done it first. I mean, you can't be Prime Minister and say, oh, this is my idea. It was Tony's idea to be Prime Minister. Cameron was just copying him.
In next week's Time Trumpet, the disrespect for authority figures invades the newsroom.
Well, the story's been obtained by our political editor, Nick Robinson. He joins us now.
We look at more television from the first part of the 21st century.
But I'll start with what I've got right in front of me here, and I'll pop one of these little fellas just over my hand.
We catch up with an increasingly odd Tom Cruise.
Pound for pound, I am the strongest man on this planet. Feel my bicep. Hey, don't touch me or I'll break your fucking neck. And I won't even have to touch you to do it.
And we look at the time when Blair and Brown battled over who should be called Prime Minister.
You can't have two Prime Ministers. It's like having two parents.
Ruggedly beautiful and in an awe-inspiring situation. If you'd like to see Portland Cross Castle restored and fully accessible to ordinary people, then this.
This week on Time Trumpet, 2008, the year Britain descended into a morass of drunk, bingy drinking that turned dangerous.
Everyone that presented television shows was drunk. Hugh Edwards was mostly off his face.
How we doing for tapes?
Britain in 2031, an overcrowded land, but at least we're sober, not like in 2008.
But if you're looking for a sports coupe, Aston.
Rubbish.
I'm not...
Oh!
No. There'd be whole news bulletins where you couldn't make out anything apart from just sort of giggling and slurring.
And watching that with me is our political editor, Andrew Marr. Andrew is still digesting details of tonight's reshuffle.
I can't remember if it was Jon Snow and Krishnan Gurumurthy. One of these double acts had a thing they did while they were drunk where one of them would go, "It's 9 o'clock, here are the news headlines," and the other one would go, "It's 9 o'clock, here are the news," and all that sort of thing. And there was a lot of that on the news in those days. One person would say, "There's been a shooting," and "Oh, a shooting!"
We were never pissed on screen, were we? No. Never, we wouldn't touch a drop, like. But that Cilla Black, she came on and she was all over the place. She was pulling at her hair, tugging it, going, "It's so weak, it's so weak." It wasn't.
And Bill Turnbull and Anna Ford, they got pissed with, what's his name, George Alagaya. George Alagaya, just before he did the 6 o'clock news, and they shaved off his head. Right. But it didn't grow back properly, so he spent the rest of his life with this weird half haircut.
Serves him right.
At 6 o'clock, these are tonight's top stories. Binge drinking, a special report on how even 6-year-olds are ending up in casualty.
These youth workers are looking for underage drinkers.
It's Streetwise. Anybody else here? You look really pale. Are you OK? Come here, let me look at your eyes.
This is the outskirts of Southampton, but the increasing number of children and teenagers drinking is a national problem.
When I was a kid, you never heard of anyone drinking binge. It was not even an issue. And then suddenly, there's this thing everywhere, binge drinking, binge drinking. I don't really know where it came from. News studios have got more and more relaxed and decadent places anyway.
The second day...
With everyone binged off their face, professional standards plummeted.
Maintenance of the East Coast main line wasn't up to...
And lots of you, sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to tell you that lots of you talking about this on the email. Oh, gosh.
Disco dancing or disinfectant? Come on, Kathy.
And over to Jamie for something appropriately festive.
Remember Bill Oddie on Spring Lodge? Christ, he was awful. He puked in a Badgers set and then punched a sparrow.
Talking about 2008 on Time Trumpet this week are a veritable who's who of top cultural commentators stroke TV pundits.
When I think of life now and life how it was in whatever period of time the clip show today is going to be covering, I think there were some interesting differences between now and then. Some of them good, some of them bad, and I'm happy to elaborate on them in whichever way you feel is most appropriate.
What a year. It was 1 year that I will never forget, you know.
Which year was that? Do you watch much television now?
No, sometimes, like at a party, someone will get out a tiny television and you'll look for about 10 minutes or something, but...
It would help if you said that you watched a lot of television.
Oh, yeah, I watch TV all the time.
If you are new to home shopping bacon, think about this. It's the glamorous films over the last 20 or so years that have made us so big. Think about Deliverance, when the guy says, "Squeal, piggy, squeal," whilst he's bumming the fat rafter. It's wham, bam, thank you, ham, if you know what I mean. That's probably why you're here today.
How best to beat the smoking ban?
Which is imminent.
Which is imminent. May we present the personalised smoking unit, the PSU?
So, you're in a bar sometime in the future?
Sorry, there's no smoking here.
But I've got one of these.
My apologies. Would you like a complimentary?
So how does it work, you're probably wondering? This gets plugged into the nearest power point. The cigarettes are here. The smoke comes down here, through the filtration system, in and out, handily through this little baby, which goes to the nearest door, window or fire exit.
Folds away neatly. We're looking for £100,000 for 10%.
10%.
I will do the 100,000 for 25%.
Frankly, that's an insult. This is a work of genius.
For what percent? What? Excuse me.
How do you expect to get up to 6 million? Because that's a huge turnover.
Sorry, love, I'm talking to the man.
I'm John Humphreys, and we're painting a wall.
I'm Gavin Essler, and we're painting a wall.
I'm Jermaine Greer, and I'm painting a wall.
I'm Nicholas Owen, and I'm painting a wall.
I just love green. I just love green.
I'm painting a wall with my friends.
It's good to have friends. See how I'm standing to paint the wall.
Still quite a lot to do.
And so little time to do it.
One politician happy to go on painting a wall was David Cameron.
Seems to have got a bit of red in this one.
Soon Cameron won plaudits for his sure media touch.
Now, I did an awful lot of things to gain popularity. I learned to break dance. I went to the premiere of Ice Age 3 in a mammoth costume. I lived in a tree house. I danced with Natasha Kaplinsky on Comic Relief. I rapped the 5 pledges of our manifesto. Sang with McFly.
But look at the facts, you know. In 2006, an edition of Question Time will get 1.5 million viewers. If you put a bloke from EastEnders on it, it might go up to 1.7. How did you sell politics to the public? And the answer was to have a puppet of a donkey asking the person the questions in the company of puppets of animals or objects.
So, first question from Monkey is, what do we call you? Is it Dave? David? Crazy Davy?
Cameron was the first politician quite happy to go on this new show.
People call me David. I don't really mind, and I sometimes often don't notice, so...
Right. Crazy David Cameron's in the hut.
Whatever you like.
We used to go on holiday in Spain every year, and you'd see the donkey on the beach, and you'd see the newsstand next to the donkey, and all the kids were looking at the donkey. There were no kids looking at the newsstand. So when the BBC came to me and said, how about doing Question Time, I thought, yeah, let's have the donkey.
So, Davey, can you tell us everything about politics in 10 seconds?
There are those who come into politics to tell people what to do. That's Tony Blair. And there are those who come into politics to set people free. That is David...
The word for it was edutainment. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yes.
It both educates and it entertains, and that word's a compound word of those two things. And people say to me, oh, you're always talking about edutainment. What do you mean? What I mean is...
infiltration.
Or infotation is another way of saying edutainment.
Let's face it, this is exactly the right time to roll one up, isn't it?
Look, I did lots of things before I came into politics that I shouldn't have done.
Yeah, right.
David Dimbledonkey trivialised politics. Well, they said the same thing about politics. Oh, you know, Scheitgeist on Channel 4.
But let me just take on the other 2 points.
No, Monkey's tired.
He is only 3 foot tall, but packed into that is a lot of nous.
Oh, Monkey wants to know which is your favourite spin-off band from Busted. Is it Fight Star or Son of Dork? Well, quick as you like.
It's hard to remember that there was a time when politicians were not interviewed by anthropomorphic puppets. And there was a time when a politician could expect to be asked difficult questions by a human, not by some kind of sop.
Oh, thanks for coming in. Grab yourself a coconut on the way out. Bye, Davey.
But the biggest political story of 2008 was that 2 men were acting as parallel prime ministers, Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. Occasionally they would give simultaneous speeches.
Power, wealth and opportunity are in the hands of the many, not the few. And not just the few.
It was like the 2 of them were doing the same job, wasn't it? It's like there was 2 peas in a pod, like Noah's Ark or something. Like Tweedle Brown and Tweedle Blair. Sorry.
You all right?
I am all right. I was thinking about what I just said.
Gordon Brown's one of the best chances this country's ever had. But as Prime Minister, you see, my judge of a Prime Minister is always, would I be happy to have my wife leave me for him? Tony, no problem. Anytime, he can have her. But Gordon, I mean, would you want to hire a private detective and have him show you pictures of that leaving a motel with your wife? Not in a million years.
But on April the 9th, Tony Blair, realising that really there was nothing else left for him to do, announced his resignation.
Well, the night before, Sherry rang me up and said, come over, Alistair, I think he's lost it. He's really going to do something stupid like, in her words, we on the policeman, which was always one of Tony's jokes.
How did he look when you went into the
he looked desperate, crestfallen. And there he is, sitting in the toweling dressing gown that he thought brought him closer to Thatcher, which wasn't the case anyway, Trust House 40 written on it. And he kind of whimpers and says to me, oh, do they still love me? Do they still love me? I said, no, Tony, they think you're an arsehole. Why do you think the fireworks are going off? And he says, oh, but I still love them. And then he suddenly changes and says, well, if it's fireworks they want, I'll give them fireworks. So he reaches for the amaretto bottle, poured the amaretto all over himself. Unfortunately, neither of us had any matches, so there weren't going to be any fireworks. Not that it would have made any difference, because the amaretto bottle was full of Ribena. He wasn't even drunk. That's when I finished with him. I haven't spoken to him since. I never liked the guy. Never liked him at all.
Actually, if you can't get out and about, then here is a really good idea. If you fancy a pork chop, and you may be sitting there at the moment almost slavering over the thought of it now, a pork chop freshly cooked. Look, you haven't got it, but I can help you and deliver this direct to your door, usually within 5 days. Cook a whole pack of bacon all together. Great substitute for a gammon steak or a pork chop, I'm sure you'll agree.
Do you remember some of the documentaries at the time?
Oh, yes. The man who was just a foot. Right. Watch a bit of, telly. Let's have a look. You like the bill, don't you? Thought I might, do a bit of shopping later on if you fancy slipping on your roller skate and getting a bit of air. Yeah?
How do people react to him? Do they tease him?
People do joke that he must be really good at football. And of course he's not, because he's totally immobile. Because he is a foot doesn't of course mean he's good at anything that's particular to a foot, because what people don't grasp is he is a foot. That's him. He can't kick his foot. That's just you, isn't it? Darling, that's just you.
Meanwhile, Britain's descent into binge spread to all aspects of life. These are two bishops. In hospitals, drunk surgeons had a laugh sewing eggs and ping-pong balls into the stomachs of patients.
Too far.
Try an egg, yeah.
Just imagine if he's hugging the missus of the eggs. Let's sew him up.
Remember the pukey-okey bars? Well, I like them. You know, you puke and sing at the same time.
What word can indicate...
Meanwhile, at university, tired students simply couldn't be bothered to learn anything.
Entertainment game combining memory and skill tests, poor quality cheese, and the play within a play in Shakespeare's Hamlet.
I can't remember the question. I think you should just...
Venezuela? I think it's Venezuela.
You say Venezuela for every answer.
I'm convinced it's Venezuela.
No, give us a sec.
Just make something up. Venezuela? Have I said Venezuela? Can I sit in the middle? Come on then, it's Venezuela. He likes Venezuela. He's been to Venezuela.
No, it's not fucking Venezuela.
Say anything, make something up. Say, yeah, maybe it's right.
Say Fugnu. That's just...
Come on.
Ridiculous. What about Fugnu?
No, it's Venezuela. 10 points for this.
Bollocks.
And Noel Edmonds. He did Deal or No Deal off his face. He was tearing open the boxes and says, I don't care if you win, chicken feed to me. And then he clouted someone over the head with a phone.
Things have now got so bad that as a last resort, the government have asked Ant and Dec to hold an inquiry into binge Britain and come up with recommendations.
Report comes out next week? Aye, next week, yes. I'm looking forward to it. It's over 1,000 pages long, man, pretty thick. You know, thank God for computers, eh? Imagine having to type that lot up. It'd take forever, wouldn't it?
Does Ant understand all this? Do you get all this?
No.
No, you don't really do. Man, let's just say neither of us really understand, the ins and outs of it. What we understand is people. Old people, young people, and drink.
Well, we like a good time, but we're not hospital cases.
No, just a glass of sherry before a meal or something like that, eh?
Oh, yes.
Right.
At the presentation of their report, Ant and Dec couldn't resist falling back into their old ways.
What are you doing? I was a bit anxious, so I thought I'd have a quick sniff to settle me nerves.
And no, you cannot drink alcohol at a press conference for Booze Britain.
The Ant and Dec report has come up with the following recommendations.
Publicans should be legally obliged to undertake an ID check both at the door and at the bar, for all customers, thereby eliminating any possibility of underage drinking.
Publican? What do they know about running bars? They can only eat fish.
No, and you're thinking of Pelican.
Because they played the ass so much, no one has taken the report seriously, and Britain has descended into hell.
4 yob kids over there, and I'm going now to approach them, dressed as one of them. If I'm spotted, or if they realise that I'm not, in fact, a yob kid, I could be in serious trouble. Trying as much as possible to move like one of them, I approach a small gang and cautiously begin to blend in. Sup, my niggas? Yeah. Just in town to buy a little bit of drugs and ting, you know? Oh my God, I can't believe it. I've never been this far away from home.
What are you talking about?
Is I the only gay in the village? Just talking about, is we like gonna do a stabbing, do some stabbing, you know, rewind, bothered, I'm a lady.
Nah, mate, we're just playing a bit of footy.
Oh, yeah, Blake. Oh, look, adult. Which one of you Negroes is gonna, like, come and happy slap that maidly with me, Blake, yeah?
You go and we'll just watch, yeah?
We could, like, take a lot of drugs and do the happy slapping on the drugs with that, on the man over there and stuff, and it could be like black and wicked and Blake. That is so Blake, you know, that is black. That is fat black. That is William Peter Blatty, and that is
Look, mate,
so.
why don't you just fuck off?
Hey, okay, listen. Don't come closer, stay there, because I'm being filmed. I'm doing a programme for the BBC, and this is all being filmed, so if you come any closer, it'll be on film.
Where are the cameras then?
There's a camera. I'm wearing a hidden camera. There's a camera in that car there. You can see the light. So if you just stay there. Don't move, and put that skateboard down.
Furthermore, all alcohol should not be advertised as an aspirational ideal.
But how do they cure headaches?
What? No, aspirational, not aspirin. We will now take questions from the floor.
Look at the little Ellie. Look at the little Ellie. Oh. Look at the pussycat.
We were looking for £225,000. Peter? I know what you're thinking. Come on, Pete. What's going through your head?
The thought of having to look at my shit when I go to the toilet afterwards is sort of borderline for me, especially if you're going, as I would call it when I was a little kid, and I haven't changed now, I call it big toilet. So when you go to the big toilet, you can't wait to close that top seat down.
There you go.
Of all the on-screen relationships in 2008, the one that was to lead to most tragedy was the one between Natasha Kaplinsky and Dermot Murnaghan.
I don't think he ever really came to terms with my success on Strictly Come Dancing. He spent ages trying to set up a show with Dermot O'Leary called Dermot and Dermot. But it was just a name. Still, he pushed it around for ages in various forms. Dermot meets Dermot, Dermot squared, It Takes Two Dermots, Big Dermot, Little Dermot, Dermot Crabs.
Well, helping raise awareness is the singer Tom York from the rock band Radiohead.
I'm a massive Radiohead fan, and I was so excited that Tom York was on. But Dermot was in a very bad mood because he'd wanted to do a joke, something about climate change being a hot issue. He'd written it himself, and it went down very badly.
Now, climate change is quite literally one of the hot issues of the moment, as we're all urged to recycle.
When the joke didn't work, something broke in Dermot. He gave up. And in fact, so when I was talking to Tom, I could hear this muttering in the background. I heard him say, "You might at least have shaved," and it was just really embarrassing. And then he also said, "What on earth's the matter with your eye?" I heard him say wanker, and I had to actually cough over it.
Tom, I mean, the problem is...
When Dermot Murnaghan hung himself live on breakfast television, it was a calculated critique of the way the media was going. He was caught up in this stupid world of edutainment or infication, whatever you call it, and he wanted to make some kind of protest against that. And as soon as he did that, as soon as he made that gesture...
Documedy.
Huh? Documedy, yeah. As soon as he made that gesture of hanging himself on TV, he became the people's news presenter of choice.
A bit of a change for you, Tom, from Radiohead to Friends of the Earth, Saving the World.
Saving the world?
I sensed something happening beside me.
You know, when the guy is standing on the chair, putting the thing around his neck, it's kind of obvious, isn't it?
I went on, I turned to auto cue, and I finished my piece, and I threw to him, and he was hanging.
Yeah, well, we've got a day, haven't we? Right,
Yeah.
we'll finish about 6 o'clock this evening.
What made you decide to get involved?
I mean, she was being upstaged, really, which she hated. I mean, a lot of the time, you know, no one would make little rabbit signs or kind of go, ooh, and do things like that, but this was a real ramp up.
His eyes were pleading for me to help him. So I swung off his legs just to finish off the job. They did ask me to dance at his funeral. I didn't think it was appropriate. And of course, you could have written the tabloid headlines yourself, couldn't you? Kaplinsky dances on Moynihan's grave. So.
But the biggest event of the year was the day Blair resigned as Prime Minister and tried to hand over to someone else who wasn't Gordon Brown, even though he'd promised it would be Gordon Brown.
He tipped off to me that he wanted me to take over, but of course that was something private between us. The rest of the cabinet thought it was Brown that was going to take over.
Blair called a quick cabinet meeting without Gordon Brown and told them all it wasn't going to be Gordon Brown.
Oh, the day itself was murder. I mean, he set off to the palace and we all thought, OK, that's it. Unfortunately, he'd promised large numbers of people that they'd be the next Prime Minister.
Publicly, Miliband said this rumour was bollocks.
I had this car waiting for me to take me to the palace, and so I shot off to the palace.
Brown shot off after him, as did Cameron, who'd also been promised, while Ming Campbell waited for a taxi.
I think all in all, there was more than 17 people he was promising to hand over to.
I wasn't aware of this. I mean, you're telling me this now, but I mean, that's really knocked me for six, to be honest.
So you could see the Mall was getting pretty congested.
The fly in my ointment was Brown, and I had to get to that palace before him.
A lot of nonsense is talked about the day of the handover.
There was a bomb scare that had come in by telephone, and it was in the part of London where my car was travelling through, so we couldn't get out, we couldn't move.
While on the way to the palace, Blair pulled one more massive rabbit out of his hat.
He rings up the press and announces that we're going to join the euro, thinking that Gordon would think, hell, I got to get back to the Treasury sorted out because it'll be a stock exchange meltdown. Gordon, fuck economics, he says, keep going for the palace.
I mean, it was never really established where this bomb threat had come from, but I've got a pretty good idea.
Not true. Not true. I phoned in a suspect package. It may have been a bomb. It may have been a discarded bag of chips.
Aware of Miliband's delay, Blair dragged his conversation with the Queen out for some time.
Tony's audience with the Queen went on for 3.5 hours, but that's not unusual. He makes her laugh.
When offered tea, he asked if he could have some lapsang souchong, which he knew they would have to send out for.
The Queen found it quite difficult to let Tony go. He was her first real Prime Minister, and it was quite difficult for her to imagine someone else doing the job.
While the meeting between Queen and Prime Minister continued, Brown was left in a holding pattern.
Brown's just going round and round in circles, and, you know, they had to refuel.
I mean, the whole country watched this, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, people took the day off work. Everyone's going, I can't come out, I'm watching Brown go round Buckingham Palace.
It was a bit like the OJ
car
chase, wasn't it?
It was like the OJ car chase, but with no chase element, and with one car.
7 hours and 6 years later than he'd been promised, Brown was at last Prime Minister.
For months, all the staff would address Gordon Brown as Prime Minister and they would always do, and some of them, I mean, I just did that quite, small scale. Some of them would do enormous sort of inverted commas, and not just Prime Minister, but they would say things like, there's an important call, really quite elaborately, and I think it did have an effect on Brown.
One of the things that happens when you are Prime Minister is that you get your portrait painted and hung on the wall in number 10. Sitting was very pleasant and the painter was very friendly, but when it came to the unveiling, it was a portrait of Tony Hancock. I thought there was some resemblance, I suppose, but after a while it did begin to rankle, because I walked day after day up and down the stairs every day and could see a picture of Tony Hancock when it should have been a picture of me.
And look at what you've got, the line of fat there, that's what does it for me. It's juicy and you can taste it already. But you leave the grill on a little bit too long and what have you got? You've got the crispy fella. Sunday morning wouldn't be the same without the little crispy fella. Now, you may have just heard the alarm there. The alarm's gone off. Let me pop that down. That's good stuff. Let me pop that down. The alarm has gone off for our 1 minute smash and grab bacon raid. This is your big chance to win. Details of the phone number coming up at the bottom of the screen. You can call now, but you'll need a question first of all. The prize is a whole pig's worth of bacon. Not a word of a lie. This could be yours. This is the moment you've been waiting for. And here's the big question then. What is a thinly sliced pork that could be grilled or fried and is usually served with eggs? Go. Got about 40 seconds then. The phone number's at the bottom of the screen. Call it now. I'm waiting for a caller on this line. I'll give you a clue, just in case you're struggling with this one. It's a bit difficult. You may have had it on a sandwich with ketchup. No, there's no call yet. I'll give you another one. Think of the first 2 letters of the alphabet, reversed.
Next week on Time Trumpet, we catch up with an increasingly mad Tom Cruise.
I've read every book that's ever been written. Test me.
The crackdown on security.
There'd be strip searches at things like the cinema and the ballet, and so people got used to just walking around with nothing on because they knew that it was the only way you could tell someone was definitely not a terrorist.
Plus a look back at some of the television from the period.
You've come to the studio today because you think that your window is the cleanest in the world.
Oh, definitely.
This week on Time Trumpet, the war on terror.
Oh, one of those terrorists came round my way, I'd smack him one, I'd show him.
The day the BBC realised some of its presenters were old and past it.
Last night, Conservative peers blocked plans to end the automatic right to trial by jury and proposals for foundation hospitals.
We visit Tim Henman at his new cafe.
Would you like a slice of cake with your coffee?
And we remember Cilla Black's live autopsy.
There we are. Just hand you that, Karen.
It's 2031, and with the opening of the new Atlantic footbridge, we have the ability to walk freely wherever we want. We can take food in convenient pill form, so that all we need eat are pill meals. But life was so different 30 years ago.
Children under 10 are getting fatter, with new figures out today showing there's been a sharp rise in the number of obese children in England. Our health correspondent Jill Higgins reports.
This is the age group seeing the biggest rise in obesity. It's increasing the children's risk of heart disease and diabetes. Today's message is that weights must come down.
But if the problems are so obvious, why are they proving so difficult to tackle?
It's easy to claim that my product doesn't make a difference, my advertising isn't making a difference, my school meals aren't making a difference. So I think the blame has to be shared, but we really all do have to take responsibility for creating a world where our kids are being damaged.
I saw a kid once, he was so fat, you couldn't see his eyes. His mouth was like a tube.
One man concerned with children's eating habits was, of course, Jamie Oliver.
Kids, how'd you fancy a bit of Jamie Oliver for your dinner tonight?
Jamie Oliver cloned himself and made himself into little mounds of Jamie Oliver flesh. So that was what you cooked.
I've got this product. It's called Jamie Oliver's Cuts. It's my own cloned flesh made from my own body. And it talks, right? So it says things like, it says, pick me up. It says, tenderise me. Put it in the frying pan, stick a bit of salt on, you do what it says, and there you are.
Grate that over, mate, to give it a little bit of a twang. And I just want about 2 tablespoons of vegetable.
You could have a bit of camaraderie with the ingredients, and it was sort of nice. It made it a much more human process. Or, you know, have you gone off, or you were all right for a couple of days? No, I'm all right, you know. Always very jolly.
Bit of chilli powder. It does get up your old nose, though.
I mean, it's quite a startling idea, this whole cloning your own flesh. How did you arrive at that?
Yeah, well, it was after the bird flu thing. Somebody told me that human flesh tasted a bit like chicken, you know? So I cut a toe off and fried up the little parsley, and it was lovely. Jules loved it. And we took it from there, really, you know, found a few scientists, teamed up with them, and it all kicked off.
Yeah, do you miss your toe?
No, I cloned another one from the other foot.
I've got nice sort of fat marblings. All that fat's going to kind of like melt and kind of make me really, really tasty.
If I want a piece of meat that's going to talk back to me, I'll just go and find myself a man, won't I? Girls, eh?
You love your Jamie Oliver, don't you? Now make sure...
Yeah, well, I bought some Jimmy Oliver meat, which I thought was the same thing, but it turned out to be like a cheaper version, and it just said things like lovely Jubilee and Puka.
How did you feel when Gordon Ramsay brought out processed Ramsay flesh that swore?
I had one of his gourmet sausages the other day. It came back up and swore at me. Said, chew me properly, you fat twat.
A little bit of mustard on me. Cooked in Coca-Cola. Fuck all else. Do me a favour and fuck off. Go on.
I mean, I'm sorry, but who wants a cutlet that shouts out your mother's a cocksucker?
Yeah.
Eh?
Do you remember some of the documentaries at the time?
Oh, yes. The Girl with the Voice of Boris Johnson.
Bueno, María, si quisieras decir unas palabras para las cámaras.
My appreciation of Pericles is very much a romantic and literary one.
There is no cure for Maria. It isn't fatal, but I doubt she'll make it to 30.
Beware. There's a Laura blood. I root around and examine dear old Scylla.
Do you remember Cilla Black's Autopsy? Yeah, Cilla Black, that was a brilliant one. But some of the other ones, like Anthea Turner's, that was a bit of a flop.
Oh. Surprise, surprise. It's an ovarian cyst.
Yeah, but do you know, apparently she was a singer.
No, I don't know that. Yeah.
Well, they didn't know till they opened her up.
In 1964, Cilla Black had a hit with anyone who had a heart. And anyone who's ever seen a heart would recognise the telltale signs of atherosclerosis. It's here, and also here.
What did you enjoy most? The years 2005, 6, 7, 8, and 9.
I guess what I most enjoyed in the year 2005 to 9 was the War on Terror.
Today, in 2031, we've got so used to 30 years of terror that some of it no longer scares us.
Hang on.
But at the time, people were genuinely scared.
Now and again you think, oh, this bloody terror, you know, all this terror, you know, and you often hear people say that. You know, you say, how are you doing? All right, apart from all this terror, this wretched terror.
And they had every right to be scared. The war on terror was one the government was losing. This policeman should have arrested this suicide bomber instead of giving him directions to Buckingham Palace. And though we'd eliminated the threat of the enemy flying planes into buildings, no one was prepared for terrorists flying 2 buildings into the sides of planes. No one was killed, but a lot of people were surprised. But 30 years ago, Tony Blair and then Gordon Brown got through no fewer than 24 Home Secretaries in trying to combat terror. Between them, they tried to come up with as much legislation as possible to stop terror.
We banned rucksacks, but it had very little effect, so we had to go further and ban buses and trains.
That only had a limited effect, so we decided in the end to ban all forms of transport.
So people would walk from city to city, but as we had already banned rucksacks, they couldn't bring any supplies, and a lot of people died from dehydration.
Well, we actually asked TV and radio programmes to include bomb threat plots within their storylines. They had a dirty bomb go off in Balamory. People never forgot that, never.
We got a lot of people in. We got movers and shakers from the entertainment industry. We got Richard Curtis in to do a special Vicar of Dibley sketch with Dawn French and that idiot blonde woman who kept asking Dawn, does Allah approve of bombing and bombers?
Well, the joke was meant to be that in a West Country accent it came out like bumming and bummers.
There have been more angry protests in Muslim countries. Here, several hundred protesters marched through central London.
These were waiting for worshippers when they arrived at the mosque in Regent's Park in London for the midday prayer. Many people didn't like them. The mosque's own security people were also unhappy and made them take the placards out onto the street.
Freedom, go to hell! Freedom, go to hell! Freedom, go to hell!
I remember people started saying things about Muslims, like, oh, Muslims are very nice, aren't they? People would often drop that into conversation just in case anyone was listening who might... You know, and you'd have all sorts of non-sequiturs. People would say, that's £1.70, please, and I like Muslims.
Good morning. Imagine there's no heaven.
Commentators at the time argued that Islam
it's easy if you try.
Was radicalised by the actions of this man who invaded
no hell below us.
Iraq.
Above us, only sky. I'd like to end Guantanamo.
But he didn't. And 30 years on, Guantanamo Bay still exists. A whole city has developed with shops and schools for the inmates' children. Everyone's still bombarded day and night with white noise and the phrase, "You are nothing."
You're nothing.
But there are now luxuries allowed, like mobile phones.
You are nothing. You are nothing.
So bad it's good, that was the sort of catchphrase, I think.
You're nothing.
Other inmates work here professionally, and some have even gone into the army.
You are nothing.
You are nothing. Guantanamo even has its own TV station, pumping out its biggest variety hit, Guantanamo Madhouse.
You are nothing.
A number of Iraqis went on record as saying this is like the Isle of Man now. Stop this.
Imagine all the people living for today. The colored girls city. Take a walk on the wild side. 1, 2, 3, 4.
María, si quisieras hablar, por favor.
Thatcher was the last person that I can remember who did anything that seemed to sound like a lesson about what she thought society should be like.
Gracias.
Maybe we should have a think about some of the things from the years 2005, 2006, 2007, not finished, 2007, 2008, that we all remember.
Okay. Monkeys.
Biscuits.
Bricks.
Exit signs.
Ovens. I'll just put it in the oven.
Oh, Ricochet Boys.
The Swedish.
Mercy killing. What was all that about? Wool. Torture.
Good.
You can't just say good.
Okay, what do you want me to do?
Just individual words that sum up 2005 to about...
That's difficult. Even the word football is foot and ball. I cannot
No, but
go.
it's a composite word.
Okay, can I use... Composite is okay?
Yes.
Okay, composite is okay. Football.
Yes.
Mother care.
Motor car.
Mother care. Mother care. Mother care. I was a child, my mother was taking care of me.
Oh, right.
That's...
But you don't mean the firm mother care?
Oh, no.
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 I mean, my mother was carrying me.
You see, I'm sorry to pick you up on this, but if you meant the firm mother care, then that would be a valid use of the word mother care, because mother care would therefore be a composite word. But if you were talking about the care of your mother, then that's really two words, mother and care.
Okay. I understand. Sorry, I just... okay, no, mother care is not possible, no?
No.
Single mum?
No.
My father wasn't there.
Two of our greatest sportsmen from that period were Tim Henman and Andy Murray. 30 years on, I caught up with just Tim Henman, who talked to us about Andy Murray.
I had announced that I was going to retire at the end of the season. That was my last Wimbledon, my last chance. But Andy beat me in round one, straight sets. And of course, I was bitterly disappointed. But the form he was in, he was obviously going to go on and win it. So I jumped over the net to hug him, and I must have touched something because my foot got stuck and I broke my racket. I slipped, broke my racket, and speared him straight through the neck.
People couldn't have been angrier if he'd taken a shit in his hand and served it as a volley at the Royal Box.
They were angry.
They were furious.
And people would come up to me and say, murderer, and ruined everything.
That must have got you down, really, over a period of time.
Oh, well, yes, it did. It did get me down. And I got into the car in the garage with the engine running. And I was passed out with the fumes, and so I must have accidentally slipped onto the gear stick and put it into reverse. So the car went backwards out into the road, and I killed another man.
What then? What was going through your mind?
Well, what happens when you even fail to kill yourself? Where do you go then? Rural Hertfordshire, that's where. Everything all right?
And it's in rural Hertfordshire that Tim Henman has opened up his new cafe, Tiger Tim's.
I tried my hand at commentating, but the BBC replaced me with Goran Ivanisevic, who almost sounded incomprehensible and made remarks about ugly women and faggots.
Come on, Henman!
Go on, Tiger!
What's that?
Oh, I fitted that just for a laugh. I seem to amuse some of the punters.
What's that noise?
That's a disabled toilet. I had to sack the bar manager, and he did that before he left. I don't know how to change it.
1 Queen's Club sandwich and a Timochino.
I put up a blackboard saying I serve the 12th fastest service in the world. But when I'm slow getting coffee, they all shout, "Come on, Tim!"
Any other little improvements you've done?
I have installed free internet. But we have tramps coming in here, fiddling with themselves. I wouldn't mind if they drank my coffee, but they drink dental mouthwash. Do you want me to do the clenched fist?
No, don't do that, don't do that. What didn't you like about that period? And can you make it 5 words?
Okay, that's an easy one. I didn't like many things.
Do you remember the news?
Yeah, I do, actually.
What happened to that?
It was just mental. Every day, oh, this happened. This happened. It's like, all right, I've got a life.
The fireworks have started.
At that time, so few people watched the news that broadcasters tried everything they could to broaden its appeal. For example, getting Claire Balding to commentate on the bombing of Iran.
Shudders right through you, and the light. The colours there of white and fuchsia, very regal and very loud. And they fall down like gold stars dropping from the sky. The sky lit up, the faces around lighting up. Building up now to the big finale, which is going to be a burst of happy colours.
And coming up later in the programme...
6 months after a tornado ripped through Birmingham, many homes, this whole street, are still completely uninhabitable. Later, I'll be asking why.
And I'll be reporting from Drumlanrig Castle in Dumfries and Galloway, the scene of a multi-million-pound art raid.
And I'll be strapping myself up with Semtex and asking the question, just how effective are the defences at Sizewell B?
And I'll be getting this prop ready for Evan Davis's report on house prices.
And I'll be here to supply the studio guests with teas and coffees and generally make sure they're well looked after.
And I'll be asking the Chancellor.
To win over declining viewers to the news, the BBC pumped billions into coming up with a more exciting news service. Some of the broadcasts consisted entirely of explanations of what was coming up next.
And I'll be trying on all the reporters' suits to check them for wear and tear.
Good night.
The bulk of the £200 billion spent on revamping the news was used on giving Hugh Edwards a hydraulic desk to appeal to young people.
I remember the first time I saw that, I thought the cameraman was moving up, but it wasn't. The desk was going down. Right. It's like when you're on a train, you're looking out the train window, and you think, oh my God, my chair's moving. But it's not. It's that the whole train is moving.
Of course, it didn't mean that they got any more viewers. People would just switch on at the end to see the desk go down. So then they had the desk rise up at the start, but it just meant people would switch on at the start, switch off during the middle, and switch on at the end again to see the desk go down. So then they installed a randomizer so that the desk would go up at unexpected points throughout the show. But in the end, Hugh Edwards just said, you know, I'm not a fairground ride.
With viewers snubbing Hugh Edwards and his desk in droves, the BBC just gave up.
Hello, very good morning. You're watching BBC News 24 with Joanna Gosling and Simon McCoy. It's just after 11:30. A summary of the news now.
What the public did watch in their millions was BBC One's People Who Act Like Their Name Would Imply They Would.
This week on People Who Act Like Their Name Would Imply They Would, meet Carrie, Sherry, Nick, Josh, and Ernest.
There was one with a guy called Sean who'd shaved all his body hair off.
By the end of the series, they were getting really desperate. There was a guy called Bill who drafted bills. He wasn't actually an MP, he just did it in his shed.
Wayne.
Jon Snow, they cut out in the end because he didn't. They realised.
The one bit of the Channel 4 news he doesn't do is the weather.
The weather. It's frustrating because we filmed a lot of stuff talking about Jon Snow, and then some bright spark piped up about, well, this doesn't actually work. Yeah. Liam Piano, who was that pianist.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah, otherwise he wouldn't have been in the show.
Oh, there was a classic one with this guy. I can't remember his name, but it was very funny because his name actually it does matter because his name described what he did. Oh God, I'm an idiot. It was very good though.
You have no recollection of his name?
No, his name described the thing he did.
No, I know that. You can't remember anything he did?
No. Oh God, it was really funny because
what was funny about it? Can you remember anything that was funny about it?
How close the two things were, like his name and the thing he did, were so close that it was very funny.
And you have no recollection of his name or what he did?
No. Andy?
Andy?
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't Stu, the guy that fell into the vat of acid?
No.
No.
Was it Matthew?
Matthew?
And he was climbing.
It wasn't a foreign name that sort of sounded like an English thing.
Pierre. He just pissed into the wind.
Meanwhile, the war on terror was getting more terrifying.
If you met a foreigner, you'd pretty much assume that he was going to kill you. And that had a big effect on things like the World Cup. Much less kind of emphasis on this is a festival of football, much more emphasis on probably all die here, let's hope to get out of this alive.
Despite best efforts, undercover terrorists were still breaching security.
When he came on, there was something in his eye. I knew there was something funny, and I turned to Posh and I said, he's going to blow himself up. And he did.
Now, here's the man who brings the two halves together, Dale Winter.
Meanwhile, the entertainer Vic Reeves was arrested for smuggling enriched uranium from Kurdistan. Britain went paranoid as more Home Secretaries came up with legislation to stop terror.
We arrested Scary Spice.
We also arrested someone called Terry.
There'd be strip searches at things like the cinema and the ballet. So people got used to just walking around with nothing on because they knew that it was the only way you could tell someone was definitely not a terrorist.
And there was more criticism of the police when they shot a completely naked man because they thought he looked like a van packed with explosives.
His family came over all together for the funeral, but unfortunately they came by coach.
When the coach drew up, the policeman thought it was a rucksack.
So he blew it up in a controlled explosion. He knows now he did wrong.
The next day, 19 of Gordon Brown's Home Secretaries resigned.
Are we over-scared?
I'd say we're over scared. Oh, sorry, you just said that.
I just said that.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
So what we did in the end, we placed a ban on people being terrified.
How did you...
Well, we got the police to kind of put on beards and put in suspicious packages on buses and tubes and see if anyone was terrified and arrest them. Then we extended it to the cinema. We had agents go in to watch horror films and arrest anyone who looked terrified. And they arrested a whole number of people on Final Destination 3, but we couldn't make it stick. I mean, I think the fault with that was that Final Destination 3 wasn't really scary enough. I mean, the problem to me was the title. How can you have a sequel of a film when you have finality embedded in the central concept and indeed in the title?
To my mind, when Final Destination 2 was released, the original Final Destination should have been renamed Penultimate Destination.
Anyway, that's beside the point. I mean, the thing was, it wasn't scary enough, so we couldn't make the charges stick.
Ironically, it was because no news was now being broadcast that the war against terror was finally won. Since no atrocities were being reported, people were no longer terrified.
By the end of it, it was almost... You sort of almost like the terrorists. You might see one in a public library or something and you'd have a bit of banter. Oh, what are you reading? And you'd go, oh, it's a terror, it's a jihad notebook or something. It was fun, you know, it was kind of fun.
And with the war on terror won, it was time to celebrate.
And so, to our first award. Terrorism can be a lonely business and a long, hard struggle.
Our three finalists in this category are...
Landmine destroyed a Russia bus in Tel Aviv's main street, Dizengoff. The attempted attack in London.
So how many of you are saying I remember that?
The BBC soon apologised for this show and shut down for a week.
Now, please welcome Heather Mills.
I mean, we've now had terror for 30 years. How do you think that's affected us?
Well, it solved the obesity problem because, you know, people were shitting themselves 8 or 9 times a day, and that actually helped for a lot of people.
Maybe just for the pre-watershed market.
Yeah.
We should say something instead of shit.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Crap themselves, shat themselves,
okay.
Defecated, emptied themselves.
Yeah, well, it solved...
Evacuated themselves.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll go for that one.
Okay.
I suppose the main thing was it solved the obesity problem because, you know, people evacuated their bowels about 8 or 9 times a day.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Here's Graham with a quick incision. Cut through the liver. Down we go. Oh. There we are. We'll take that back. I'll make some reference to the liver and obviously Scylla being from Liverpool.
Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. A Imagine all the people sharing all the world. The color girls say, take a walk on the wild side.
We had a big party in Trafalgar Square to celebrate the end of the War on Terror. Unfortunately, a bomb went off and a lot of people were killed. The next day, we declared war on terror again, but this time we decided we wouldn't have a party at the end.
Next week on Time Trumpet, we catch up with an increasingly mad Tom Cruise.
Do you think I have lifts in my shoes? Prove to me that I have lifts in my shoes. You can't, because you don't have my shoes.
Rape and ape.
The most popular programme television ever made.
Rape and ape.
We look at decline in respect for the royal family.
You know, you'd see Prince Charles on a bus with people just flicking his ears, saying, what are you going to do about it?
And we remember the war between Denmark and Tesco's. This week on Time Trumpet, we catch up with an increasingly odd Tom Cruise.
I've got 3 of these. I have to wind them every morning or else time will stop.
We look at the high-tech remake of Last of the Summer Wine.
Where's that natty little waitress's uniform then, you lovely little bit of crap? Oh! Put your foot down, Milburn!
And we trace the royal family's decline in popularity.
Even the army lost respect for them. At the last trooping of the colour, most of them who turned up just wore tracksuits.
It's 2031 when cars work off nuclear power and mostly work. One of the biggest accidents in the first decade of the 21st century was when a massive swarm of bees got into the BBC's computer systems.
At first, of course, everyone thought there was something wrong with their own TV, especially because the newsreaders refused to acknowledge it.
First, there was a summary of the day's news, and the main news came this evening.
I think they came in through an outside broadcast wire. They were there for a month.
So I'm doing what I'm told. I think a good day for the outsiders to...
Once the bees got into the BBC's central computer, there was an enormous mix-up at Television Centre's studios.
You fancy some coffee?
Oh, not for me. I can't stomach it at the moment.
Water, then?
Water would be lovely.
OK, back in a bit. All right.
Pay dispute broke up tonight without agreement. Royal Mail managers say their payoff of 14.5% over 18 months is incredibly good. The union...
Here you are. Thank you.
June the 12th, 2018, the coronation day of King Charles.
There's King Charles with his wife.
Very few members of the public bothered to come and watch.
You can imagine all the preparation that goes into a day like today.
Even most of the army didn't turn up.
The full glory of the sovereign's escort.
This confirmed a disrespect for the royal family that had been going on for decades.
Oh, in the end, it was pathetic. I mean, you see Charles on the bus and the people flicking at his ears and saying, what are you going to do about it?
I mean, they were on a walkabout one day and they got pelted with chicken shit. I mean, that wouldn't have happened 10 years ago, would it?
The real wake-up call from my point of view was going on Parkinson. And no, I thought it would be this sort of friendly chat. You know, you're a bit of a Jack the Lad, I'm a northern bloke. And he opened up with, don't you think you're a bit of an anachronism in the 21st century?
Right.
I mean, I smiled and laughed because I thought anachronism was a good thing.
Only last week, actually, I went up for a commercial casting and I was sitting right next to Prince William. And that's the 3rd time.
And then George Clooney came on, and I thought, again, that would be a fun time. We'd end up at some casino, pick up some models, and end up at Buck's house, you know, a bit of a champagne breakfast hangover curing. And under the applause, he says to me, you fucking piece of shit. Well, I thought this was maybe some sort of cool jargon from Ocean's 20, so I said, cheers, George. And went to clink fists with him like a man of African descent. And then Dame Judi Dench came on and called me a wanker. because I'd made a joke about Scousers and AIDS.
The real trouble can be dated back to 2010 and the funeral of Princess Michael of Kent. Prince Harry, for a laugh, had placed a remote-control fart machine in her coffin.
Did you not think that it would cause controversy?
No, I think it's what the old girl would have wanted, you know. She used to pipe them out like a Mexican donkey.
I personally, and I'm not alone in this, think the fart machine was inappropriate. I mean, the Archbishop of Canterbury was doing his address, and you could hear these farts going on.
And then, of course, you know, when everyone realised that it was coming from the coffin, Archbishop Rowan Williams runs over, tries to retrieve the little machine, but as he was bending over, he actually, you know, farted himself, and that just set everyone off again, so...
Well, to my surprise, the Queen laughed.
She's a person of far more humour and even subversive humour than she's credited with.
Royalty isn't something you're born into. You have to earn that position of respect. It's not just...
No, you are born into it.
What you have to understand is that royalty is something that you're born into.
Yeah.
You don't have to earn that respect.
2011 saw major changes in the way we shopped. All electronic equipment was given away free with newspapers, while everything else was bought at Tesco's.
Now, I was mentioning Tesco earlier on because Tesco are always in the news these days.
By 2012, Tesco's had a superstore in every square mile in Britain.
Tesco were brokering world heavyweight bouts, representing entertainment stars. They were making most of the films that were being made. Tesco's slogan changed from every little helps to we control every aspect of your lives.
Soon, Tesco's got planning permission to build anywhere in the country, even on the side of a cliff. By then, Britain was fully saturated with Tesco's, and the supermarket chain concluded it would have to look elsewhere for domination.
And then there was the war with Denmark. It started, of course, because Tesco needed room to expand. For a long time, they'd yearned to create a superstate, which was, well, the first retail country.
At noon on January the 21st, 2013, Tesco's invaded Denmark with 200 superstores and 1,500 Tesco Expresses.
The Tesco thing was a shock, because I quite like the Danes. A couple of my occasional fucks are Danes.
The Danes are a proud people. They're of Viking stock. What they want is to rape and pillage, to set fire to longships. They don't want to be walking around a supermarket and seeing Nuts magazine at the checkout next to some chewing gum and a hairnet. That's not what the Vikings want.
The war between Tesco's and Denmark lasted just 5 hours. This is all that remains of Copenhagen. Later in Time Trumpet, we'll be catching up with an increasingly odd Tom Cruise.
I'm widely traveled. No, I've visited all 15 of the inner planets of the galaxy. I often go dressed as John Voight, just to blend in. People in other galaxies seem to like to dress as John Voight.
But first, special effects.
You think you'll be kind to my bicycle? Oh, stop worrying. I'll get it back for you. I'll commandeer this vehicle. A trilby. It was being driven by a trilby.
I'm not the most technically minded person, so the idea of getting digital television gave me the heebie-jeebies.
But in 2005, it was the special effects used in the BBC's digital campaign that provoked a storm of complaints.
And what a surprise that was. I mean, they were real heads.
Yes.
And when they found 2,000 headless corpses. Apparently this animator had sort of gone crazy. He dug straight down. It was about half a mile deep, just full of bodies.
Over the last 25, 30 years, we've gone from, 5 terrestrial channels to literally hundreds of channels available to everyone. The great thing about that is that everyone, whatever their taste, would have a programme that that catered for them.
Water everywhere, and every drop is pink. I was pounding the back door.
Ghosts are drawn to hose pipes because in limbo it can be quite parching. Oh, right.
Some people are sexually aroused by the idea of violence of a sexual nature being carried out against primates. I'm not. I'm not, but some people are, and it was good that a programme existed for those people.
And by 2010, this show dominated the ratings.
You'd say, I'm sorry, I can't come out, Rape and Ape is on. And that happened every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
One catchphrase was, push your finger in.
Hook his nose.
Slow down, you're wearing him out.
Hang on tight, he's going to throw you off.
And when I saw it, I felt physically sick. But then when I thought about it after, I thought little bits of it made me crack up laughing. And of course now, it's a classic.
I didn't like it, but I wouldn't stop. So as long as the ape wasn't hurt, or if it was hurt, as long as there was some medical help for it afterwards, and it had given its consent or appeared to.
I'm done, you want to have a go?
You can tell by his eyes he wants it.
Oh, look, he's smiling, She's smiling.
It was like one of those things like The Archers or something, perhaps in the old days, you know, you think, oh, there's Rape and Ape, it's that time of day again, and all that kind of thing. It was sort of quite homely. Yeah. It's probably the homeliest rape-based theme tune I can think of.
Rape and Ape.
Rape and Ape, Rape and Ape.
Rape and Ape.
Who's gonna be in the costume? Who's gonna be in the costume?
Up the bum.
Rape, rape, rape and ape, rape and ape.
Rape, 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 rape.
Rape and ape.
Rape.
But it's one of those things, everyone was singing it.
I mean, I was one of the few people who actually felt slightly uncomfortable with the rape element. I mean, I loved the makeover, I loved the sketches, it was just the end rape.
While the public revelled in classic entertainment, its interest in the royal family steadily diminished. No one would stand up for them during the national anthem. And frequently their processions got clogged up in traffic because motorists simply couldn't be bothered pulling over.
One of the warning signs was when the BBC played the Queen's speech at double speed, so they could show the whole of Chicken Little.
Nicholas Witchell was replaced by an animatronic waxwork outside Buckingham Palace, just to convince the royals the BBC was still covering them. While relations with the BBC collapsed entirely after this disrespectful broadcast.
Citizens of Zaxor Prime, silent now, awaiting the arrival of Baritania, mother ruler of the 12, who will emerge presently from the entrance to the halls of Yantrikar. A Dubolian there, the second, lower head, capable of emitting a vaporizing ray if threatened. The 9 heads of Nuftaqued Unitard, the leader of the Metazeroid phalanx, said to be the most ruthless yet honourable destroyers of small to medium-sized worlds in the quadrant. And here is the Mother Ruler now, beside her Sublord Utilax, followed by Secretary Masfart, Super Commander Dek Laser, and the other dignitaries of the Hyperquadrant. A difficult year, of course, for the Mother Ruler, having been forced to give up control over the planets of Radox, Venjal, and Badadas by the Kiltrons, themselves understandably absent from the ceremony this Yaran.
This was the last major royal occasion that people turned out to watch. And while absolutely no one came to King Charles's coronation, millions flocked to Paul Burrell's newly opened Diana theme park.
The Diana theme park was a way of keeping her memory alive. The profits are incidental. I don't know what they are beyond that. I need never work again.
He came in for a lot of stick for the Diana fun park, didn't he?
Yeah, because he was saying that it was all about honouring her memory, but while he was saying it, he was actually charging people £5 to hear him say the words.
So they had so many attractions there. There was the Angolan landmine log ride.
There was a cry for help bumper cars, wasn't there?
Yes.
The crash coaster.
The Queen of Go-Karts.
Bulimia Nervosa Big Dipper, wasn't there?
Yeah.
There was even a bungee jump attraction called Her Royal Highness.
The idea is that you float through the journey of Diana's public life on lovely, bubbly water. It starts in 1970. Beneath us, the water is giggly, highly pumped and transparent. And we enter the 1980s. There's the ramp of famousness. Slide down that.
Princess Diana is not something that should be commemorated by a roller coaster. You know, it's true that she went fast, and she could go high and she could go down, and that you might feel sick after you'd ridden her. But those are where the similarities end.
We then enter the tunnel of marriage. Quite scary, this. It's haunting images. Prince of Wales, a younger Prince of Wales, looming over us in pyjamas.
One of the rides was a DNA test to see if you were James Hewitt's son. Apparently, a lot of people were.
Hello. We're the Hartigan brothers. And
oh dear.
Sorry, I just said who we were.
Whenever I go anywhere, I never say who I am, because you get treated differently.
Okay, cool.
Hello.
Hello. We're the Beverly Sisters.
What's your background?
Well, in 1998, we started up a software company that... We're a trio that had a number of hits in the late 50s and early 60s.
We were recently awarded an MBE.
That's a good answer.
And we're here today because we're looking for a fourth member. We'll offer up 25% of the group for £100,000.
I'd be prepared to offer you 100,000 for 40%.
I will do the 100,000 for 25%.
Can you sing?
Yeah.
Welcome to the band.
There's a rehearsal on Friday.
Well done, great, good investment.
Well done, guys.
Well done.
Thank you.
Cheers.
By 2013, the BBC's campaign to persuade everyone to buy a digital telly was even more controversial than the last one.
Oi, Titface, it's me, Denny Digit. Don't look at me like that, I'll fucking kill you. Why haven't you switched over to digital yet? We told you about 500 fucking times. What, is it too hard to understand? If your telly's old, you gotta buy a new one. Otherwise, no more telly. Comprehended, Grandad? And if you've already got a digital telly, don't get too smug, because we're going to switch to high def in a few years, and then you'll have to get one of them and all. And then after that, it's going to be fucking holograms, so you'll need an hologram machine. And after that, it's going to go into your fucking mind. So you'll have to get a special operation if you want to carry on watching fucking EastEnders, you cunt. All right? So don't say we didn't tell you.
The most popular satellite show was a Polish soap opera.
To przez Kingę.
Nie.
Po prostu nie miałam dzisiaj nic ważnego w szkole i spokojnie mogłam sobie...
It was so popular at the time, a lot of people throughout Europe learnt Polish in order to understand it.
Dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry.
Cieszę się, że pani przyszła. No była pani ze mną umówiona na rozmowę w sprawie pracy, prawda?
Z panem?
However, for the benefit of Time Trumpet viewers, we've hired some voiceover actors to revoice it in English.
Dziękuję bardzo. Remember, you're a great writer and it's a great book.
I'm just a bit nervous.
Don't be nervous. Remember what the doctor said. You're normal.
I'm normal, just like everybody else. That's what he said, wasn't it? Oh, hang on. There's a really very attractive man. I have to talk to him now. Okay, wish me luck in a good luck way.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Sean. I'm the publisher. I publish things?
Oh, you're the publisher.
Yes, I'm the publisher. Sean, let's hang.
Sean, do you have a second? I photocopied my bottom.
I can't publish this.
I'll do a better copy.
Take a seat.
Thanks.
Now, what's your name again?
Deirdre Costigan?
Deirdre. Unusual. French?
No, Athlone.
Sorry about my secretary, by the way. She's absolutely useless. Jackie, you're useless.
Hello.
Will you send in 2 coffees?
Coffee, that's the dark one, isn't it?
Yeah, and send a bit of sugar as well. Now, Deirdre, before we start, do
Do you like my desk?
Yes, yes, I do.
So do I. I'd really appreciate it if you'd just touch it for me. It's worth a fortune, so it is. Your script is brutal, love, and I'm not going to publish it, and neither is anyone else in it alone, in my opinion, and I make no apologies. You can't write, you haven't done your research, and you don't know your subject. All mechanics in Athlone are crooked, we know that, but you've got to give me proof if I'm to, publish and make some money to go on holidays.
Now, coffee in cups.
Thank you very much.
I made it quick, didn't I?
Did you remember to boil the water first, Jackie?
Nah, you must be mental.
I don't take sugar usually, even 1 spoon I go all. The doctor told me I shouldn't really take. Well, there you go.
That's the table wrecked now, destroyed.
I'm so sorry, I'm normal. I have hankies, I'm a lady.
I have hankies, but I'm a publisher.
Such was the popularity of Paul Burrell's Diana theme park that he opened another 50 of them the following year.
You went in and there was a museum of all the things of Princess Diana's that Paul Burrell had collected. There were plates and crowns, and her first fried egg was there. It had gone off a bit now, but you could still see what it would have been like.
There's an AIDS patient wandering around you can touch.
The royals were being forgotten. Of the millions who flocked to the Diana theme parks, polls revealed nearly 70% of them didn't even know she'd once been a royal. 90% of them thought she'd been married to Paul Burrell. The royals were in crisis. They faced disrespect from the public.
My mother, famously once said she wanted to be known as the Queen of Hearts, when I've been dubbed Prince of Farts, which actually doesn't sound that dissimilar.
King Charles ordered a referendum on who should rule Britain. He stood, as did Helen Mirren.
As the opinion polls came out in the lead-up, showing they were stuffed, they started to panic. They arranged photo shoots of them eating fish and chips with builders.
The royal calendar there were pictures like Charles giving a piggyback to one of the royal dogs.
William learnt the Peter Crouch dance, which no one remembered by then. Everyone thought he was having a seizure and was too ill to be king.
Exit polls showed Mirren was ahead.
I do remember saying to Wills, I said, don't the army swear an oath to us? Couldn't we get them to shoot all the people who voted for Mirren? And he said, not sure. Let me look into it. Next thing I know, the stupid shits emigrated to Monaco.
Peter.
David, what a three-way battle this is. Quite extraordinary. Here's our
But the result was a shock. A majority had written an extra name on the ballot paper and voted for the memory of Diana. So now all royal palaces lie empty in her memory. The royal family are occasionally seen processing for their own amusement, which they do in the middle of the night. Meanwhile, Prince Harry was allowed to keep his title, but he was now officially memorabilia.
My mother, she used to say to me, the longest word in the English language is smiles. Yeah. Because there's a mile, you see, between the first and the last S.
What I did out of loyalty to Diana, according to her wishes. Her wishes, as I imagined, she would have expressed them were she to be alive and consulted on certain issues. There's a certain amount of supposition there, but based on facts as I choose to see them.
But what about Rape and Ape? By its 5th season, the show was losing viewers to a much better entertainment programme.
Ross Kemp on Fire. What was all that about?
Well, it was about setting light to Ross Kemp.
I know, brilliant. I think Grant would have done well here anyway. Grant would have loved it.
Originally it was supposed to be Kemp in water, with Kemp in various water states, seas, lakes, rivers, lodge puddle in a car park, but it was a health and safety nightmare.
You might have shot a few more things than I've shot, but that's only different, isn't it?
I mean, the worst of it were just the quips, which just became interminable. What a hot show we've got. Who the Blades are my guest. I'm Ross Kemp and I'm on fire, which is just a fact.
The first time I saw it, I thought, where does this go as a series? But it just got better and better.
Since getting celebrities to do dangerous things was the future, the makers of Rape and Ape decided, put famous people like Chris Moyles in an ape suit for Rape a Celebrity Ape.
Julio Iglesias was in it. He was, he didn't look pleased.
I loved the way Ricky Gervais just kept that dance going for a long time, but it did anger the others in the cage.
I don't think he ever danced since, has he really?
Were you ever invited onto it?
No, I was never invited onto it. I'd like to have been. All those great big hairy men putting their paws all over me. It went on an awfully long time, so I think it was a bit of an insult. Don't you, that they didn't ask me?
Yes.
The Chris Moyles is the one that always gets talked about.
Speaking 10 years ago on Darts at Stars, Chris Moyles gave his own account of this celebrity abuse.
I mean, I was expecting it was going to be like the Buzzcocks, where they give you all the answers and then you know what's going to happen. But no, none of that. I mean, I was expecting to be given a bit of lube, be told where to stand, given a couple of lines to say, instead of which I was straight in there.
There are people that like to see sexual violence happening to apes, but not necessarily apes which then have the face of Chris Moyles. There's a line in the sand, and that programme crossed it.
Yes, but the producers at the time said the fault wasn't having celebrities. The fault was merely that one of the celebrities was Chris Moyles.
Yeah.
When someone like Michael Fish dies of anal trauma in a hospital ward, you do think, as good as that was, should I be watching this? I mean, yes, because I need to take the pulse of the nation.
By all means, make television about Chris Moyles, make jokes about Chris Moyles, but you have to understand that the significance of the image of Chris Moyles to various people, and it isn't always something that we can understand as people who don't attach any importance to him.
Now, this is all very well in that it says a lot of significant things about taste, about taboos, about what is acceptable and not on television. But ideally for this show, and we've been asking everyone to do this, could you just sing the theme tune to Rape an Ape?
Oh, rape an ape, rape an ape, rape an ape.
And then the verse?
I can't remember the verse. It was something like, down in the jungle where the celebrities go, there is an ape and he doesn't know what's in store for him tonight. He's gonna get a terrible fright.
Next week in Time Trumpet, the war in Iraq.
He's got his hand up as if to say, taxi!
And I wouldn't have stopped at Baghdad, no, sirree. We would have gone straight to Moscow.
But there's no taxi coming to pick up this bastard!
Donna and Ben showed they could manage these machineries, but no.
Plus, we catch up with the man who shot Noddy Holder.
I never wanted to kill him, and just hurt him.
The outskirts of Baghdad, 2031, the present day. A dishevelled Briton is filmed wandering around the bins with a gun in his hand.
The seared tuna, I think. And that bottle of Pinot Noir.
But 30 years ago, he was this man. So how did he get to become this man?
You sleep naked. I sleep naked. Makes a guy feel clean.
The answer was his relationship with this man.
Kind of burn off that excess energy, you know what I'm saying?
George Bush, seen here following his country's victory in the war against Iran in January 2007. And again here following its defeat by Iran 4 months later. The day these two people's fortunes came to be so closely linked was in 2003, when this happened.
White House spokesman Ari Fleischer saying President Bush regards this as an historic moment. The scenes on television show the thirst for freedom is unquenchable. That's from the president.
Kate, I think he's absolutely right. You know, people love freedom. They can't get enough of it. Whether it's the freedom to just sit and read a book full of left-wing propaganda, or the freedom to just be who you want to be, you know? Do your hair crazy, wear crazy clothes. It's all cool. And the Iraqi people are saying, I'm loving that, you know, I'm loving it, let's have more of that. But look at the statue, it's remarkable. You know, he's got his hand up as if to say, taxi! But there's no taxi coming to pick up this bastard.
It's 2031, when we now know alcohol is no longer bad for you.
Guinness, please.
But 30 years ago, we always worried how unhealthy we'd grow as we got older. The programme Honey, We're Killing the Kids specialised in terrifying us this way.
We're able to very accurately predict the future of your children. Let's start with your oldest, Michael. I'm going to take you through right up until he's 40.
Those rich enough did their damnedest to halt the ageing process.
The surgical altering of Anne Robinson's face has been described by doctors as making a sow's ear out of a sow's arse.
What state did you find yourself in once you'd had all this surgery done to you?
My famous wink, you know, I simply wasn't able to do it. I had to use the whole of my upper torso and my shoulders sort of like that.
If they'd replaced her head with a balloon with a face on it, it would have been more convincing.
Could you really call it a face at all? I mean, it looked like a bit of old steak rotting away with peas on it for eyes and a carrot put in for a mouth. And a piece of old steak with peas and a carrot on it might look like a face, but it isn't a face, is it? It's a rotting old piece of steak.
I had an affair with Jeremy Clarkson. It was just not a good point, rather a low point for him, because he'd killed Richard Hammond. Do you remember him?
Yes.
In some very silly joke they played out in the studio. He ran him over with a steamroller that had been fitted out with a Porsche engine. Can you imagine such a thing? Anyway, we had a rip-roaring affair. The sex, just fantastic. I mean, you know, he used to bang my head against the headboard. One night, pounded me so hard that my face fell off. I mean, I'd had a bit of surgery, you know, and it hadn't quite attached. But I wanted him to finish. But he yelled and screamed and cried when he saw my skull.
Tony Blair is another man trying to turn back the clock.
Oh, Iraq is a much better place than it was under the Tories.
Trying to resolve the events of 30 years ago when this happened.
Group Captain, you're of course watching these scenes as well. They are being beamed around the world. What do you make of them?
Well, I think it's amazing and brilliant, and it's like a film. You can see there's an Iraq man down there, and he's climbing on the crane thing because he wants to have a go on the statue as well. But the American soldiers telling him, no, you have to get down because that's, you know, it's dangerous. He's probably right, because they're not trained to handle all the symbolism at close range like that. But I bet that all the people in the town are so pleased, because Saddam, right, everyone wanted to get him. We are in a way getting him now because we've got the statue and it looks like him.
These events changed history forever. They arose because Britain and America had firm evidence Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction.
Iraq consumes 27.3 billion kilowatt hours of electricity every year. That's enough to power one Star Wars-type anti-missile system. Where is it and who's it pointing at?
British and American intelligence on Saddam was soon gathered and shown to the world. All the evidence was collected in a single dossier, which Colin Powell presented to the United Nations.
We have pictures that show an Iraqi military vehicle with a registration plate A01A03, which in a mirror reads Al-Qaeda.
These pictures show Powell being handed the intelligence dossier on Iraq by the CIA's leading Middle Eastern expert. This is absolutely everything we have on Saddam, says the official. Powell takes this as a joke and laughs uproariously. He attempts to hand the dossier back, but is told no, really, that's it. Bush, aware terror could strike at any moment, immediately consulted with Blair and made preparations for war.
I remember the huge problems with pronouncing it at first. We had all these meetings with the Americans and they would call it Iraq, 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 Iraq. It sounded like the mad clamour of rooks.
Blair wanted to be seen standing shoulder to shoulder with Bush. He took a British delegation to Washington to be guests at the President's State of the Union address.
The end of tyranny in our world. Dictatorships shelter terrorists and feed resentment and radicalism and seek weapons of mass destruction. Democracies replace resentment with hope, respect the rights of their citizens and their neighbors, and join the fight against terror. Some dismiss that goal as misguided idealism. Every step toward freedom in the world makes our country safer, so we will act boldly in freedom's cause.
Emboldened by this appeal, Britain and America prepared for war. The clock was ticking against Saddam.
We realised if we attacked him, he would attack us.
Right.
So what we had to do was attack him first. But then we realised that if he realised we were going to attack him first, he would then attack us first. So then we heard that he'd heard about this. So we realised we'd have to have a preemptive attack before he attacked us in retaliation to us attacking him.
Yeah.
Well, eventually we had to abandon that train of thought because we realised that the only way that one of us could attack the other first was if we went back in time. And neither of us had the capability to do that. Though we reckoned that Saddam was working on it and probably could do that within 3 to 18 years.
An anti-war rally marched through London. Unofficial estimates put the number of marchers at up to 2 million.
There were actually 14 people on that march. The rest were shoppers.
The stage was now set for the invasion of Iraq. Meanwhile, celebrities. Here's Charles Clarke talking about Scary Spice.
She was my favourite. She was curvy and a little spangly. She was like a firecracker in a Ming vase. So I stuck her in Belmarsh for 20 years.
OK, now everyone get out your history books.
Nowadays, we appreciate the power and influence of celebrity.
Everybody know who Hitler is?
But then, celebrities were just regarded as odd or mad or thick, a point disputed by this woman, the woman who released the doves at the end of the Michael Jackson trial. 30 years later, Time Trumpet caught up with her.
I named all the doves after Michael's songs. Mr. Billie Jean, Mr. Ben, Mr. Blood on the Dance Floor, Mr. Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, Mr. Smooth Criminal, Mr. Thriller, Mr. Beat It, Mr. Dirty Diana, Mr. Wanna Be Starting Something. Oh, it was very stressful the day the verdict came out. Mr. Dirty Diana was pecking the eyes of Mr. Smooth Criminal. Stop, I said. You're Michael Jackson's songs. Michael Jackson's songs don't behave like that. And then they both pooped. That was their way of saying, I'm sorry, Mommy.
But one man, Bob Geldof, knew that celebrities had the power to change the world, and that he was the only man brave enough to ask them to do it.
I wanted a proper fucking concert with a proper fucking achievable aim, and in the end, that aim was to be an end to death.
Considered a cyclone.
Ending death was a big challenge because at the time death was everywhere in all forms, unnatural and natural.
We have no cyclones to report here in West London, London W12. Dan, thankfully there are no cyclones on the way.
I booked the venue 10 years before, knowing I would be angry at something. And I'd want to stage a concert about it. I didn't know who would be performing or what it would be for, but I knew that at some point I would want to do an unplanned and impromptu performance of I Don't Like Mondays.
Geldof believed that if he could get enough famous people to sing in a concert, that would persuade the world's scientists to come up with a cure for death and enable those people who were already dead to rise up again.
Yeah, I thought it was fraught with problems. I mean, what if he brought someone back to life and then they committed suicide? It'd just be a waste of everyone's time.
Suddenly, London gets the Olympics. They want the venue.
I didn't see how singing I Don't Like Mondays was going to help resurrect a corpse. But Geldof seemed to think it was a vital part of the process.
I went up to Sebco and I said, what's more fucking important, an end to death or the triple jump? He said the triple jump.
He's built an entire career on the fact that he doesn't like Mondays. No, I don't like the Irish, but you don't hear me going around singing about it. Boomtown twat.
People were saying it was, like, they thought it was stupid, but he did something, didn't he? What are we scared of? What are we all scared of?
Death.
Death and ghosts. But he tried to do something, he had ambition. What have you ever done? What have you done? All you've done is get a load of old clips, force people to shave their hair off and speak about them. And yet you have the audacity to sit there in your shirt making fun of a man who tried to literally give everyone eternal life. And, you know, when you have attempted to do that, maybe you can come back and laugh at him.
What's wrong with my shirt?
Meanwhile, in Iraq, pressure was being put on Saddam. With time running out, Blair told Parliament that Saddam could strike within 45 minutes.
It was perfectly valid. There were lots of things Saddam could do in 45 minutes. I mean, most of them were, we found out later, things like prepare food and open maps and so on. But there were certainly things he could do in 45 minutes.
His claim would come to haunt him.
The big problem for the government at that stage was the publication of the Hutton Report. And the problem was they didn't know... Can you stop the music?
Oh.
Yeah, the problem was they didn't know which way the Hutton Report was going to go.
The Hutton Report into the death of David Kelly concluded that the BBC were bastards.
I believe that Saddam poses a clear and present threat to the security of our country.
Relations between the BBC and the government broke down, and this came to a head with the BBC's controversial panorama reconstruction of how the government drew up its dossier, using just children.
Give me all your intelligence. This has got to go now. What does 45 minutes look like on the clock? Everyone, this is what 45 minutes looks like on the clock. No, it don't.
The Hutton Report proved conclusively that there was no evidence that David Kelly had even died, or indeed that there was even a David Kelly.
Though the actual war itself went really well, trouble started soon after for Blair. There were allegations of torture by British soldiers against Iraqi detainees.
الانجليز بقى كانوا بيعملوا ايه؟ كانوا بيوقفونا يطلعونا وقفونا مره في طابور كلنا. انت عارف هاري جامشيت مش ما بتطيرش كده، بتطير بتطلع فوق كده. فبقى ايه؟ بتطير تطلع فوق وتيجي ايه؟ تيجي جنب يعني حوالي انش من حوالي بطننا هنا. كل ده عشان ايه؟ يخوفونا. بس يعني الحمد لله ما كناش بنخاف ولا حاجه.
And the newly installed Iraqi president proved rubbish.
Mr. President, it's 1 year since you became president of Iraq. What does it feel like? Yes.
Let me be very, very frank with you. Shit.
President Talabani, thank you very much indeed.
Meanwhile, none of Saddam's WMD were being found.
No, there were no weapons of mass destruction, so we had to assume that he was developing weapons hiding systems.
The same people who said that Saddam had those weapons were the same people who said those nasty things about Michael. Why do people tell these lies?
مرة أخذوني ونيموني على الأرض، وبعد كده إيه وقعوا دبابة عليا عشان إيه؟ عشان يخوفوني. بس أنا كنت أذكى منهم. كنت بعمل إيه؟ بشوف الدبابة وهي نازلة، جيت في النص بقى العجل إيه نازل على الجنبين. أول مرة كانت مرعبة بالنسبة لي، بس بعد كده اتعودت عليها. هم شافوا إن أنا اتعودت عليها، بقى يعملوا إيه؟ بقى يجوا ويغطوا عينيا، عشان يخوفوني زيادة. بس أنا طبعا كان أحسن لي لما مغطوا عينيا، أنا ما بقتش خايف ولا حاجة، بالعكس كان أحسن كده، مش شايف حاجة. لما هم عرفوا كده بقى يعملوا إيه؟ بقى يجوا يروحوا مغطين عينيا وما يرموش الدبابة. طبعا ملهاش لازمة. فهم كانوا فاكرين إنهم عايزين يخوفوني. بس بعد كده بقى رجعوا لعادتهم القديمة بقى إيه؟ يقعدوا يضربوني بالبنيات من غير رحمة.
Do you remember some of the music from 2006?
Oh,
7, 8, 9?
The Arctic Monkeys. Everyone heard the sound of their music, and I don't think there's anyone who didn't go, it's all right. That's okay, isn't it? And there's a lot of music around that time that was fine,
and, you know, really fine.
Meanwhile, time was running out for Bob Geldof to organise a celebrity concert that would finally put an end to death.
We had a fantastic lineup. I mean, the greatest rock and roll lineup of all time. We had Elvis Presley, John Lennon, Freddie Mercury, Kurt Cobain, Jim Morrison, and that bloke from The Shaman, all dead, all coming back.
Over 1.5 million people assembled in Hyde Park.
I was backstage mainly getting lashed with Shane MacGowan, who was technically dead at that stage. In fact, he was the example that Geldof used to use when scientists said it couldn't be done. You know, he'd wheel Shane out and yell, "Well, how do you explain that then, you weasels?"
The science was there to end it all. But the scientists, you know, they're just bone idle. They'd say, "Bob, we can't resurrect the dead because once the tissue and nerves have decayed, they can't be regenerated." And I said to them, "Bollocks to that. I'll come back in an hour and I want that man brought back to life." So I came back in an hour and we still had the same bloody row. You know, it's like banging your head against a brick wall.
As the night wore on, death hadn't been ended. Geldof got furious. A volunteer corpse was brought on, and in front of what was now 2 million people, Geldof himself told it to rise up and walk, which it did.
At no point did I think I was watching anything other than a dead man being made to dance by roadies.
It was a sorry spectacle, and they pummeled that corpse. It wasn't graceful.
No.
It was just manhandling a dead man.
I just wanted him to get off by that stage because, you know, it's all very well trying to end death, but I was just sitting there going, when are the Stereophonics coming on?
Matt Lucas and David Williams went on, but at that stage they weren't really talking to each other, so it was quite a tense sketch and quite tasteless. But the crowd just drifted off and ripped the place apart. And ironically, for the concert that was supposed to be ending death, there were 22 fatalities that day.
Many people said Geldof, what Geldof was trying to do was impossible.
But, you know, impossible is 80% possible, isn't it, if you look at the letters?
How do you mean?
Well, what I mean is the word impossible.
Yes.
That word is 80% of that. That 80% of that letterings.
Yes.
Is possible. So you got to look and you got to take that into account, haven't you? It's sort of like a saying in a way.
Yeah.
Impossible is like 80% possible. It's like inspiration is 99% perspiration. It's not exactly the same principle,
completely
but
different.
It's a completely different principle. But I wish I'd never given that as an example. Actually, what I'm saying is the lettering in the word impossible is 80% possible. Does that make sense now?
Yeah, 80% of the word impossible is possible.
That's what you've put it much better than me, which I wish you hadn't. But yes.
I know, because it shows you up.
Meanwhile, the BBC relaxed the rules on product placement, meaning that products could be advertised within programmes.
Welcome to the magnificent Cathedral of St Edmundsbury.
But there was an outcry when Songs of Praise revealed they'd been sponsored by Kellogg's.
Sainsbury's.
In 2010, the BBC brought together two of the world's biggest celebrities.
You then did a chat show which you co-hosted with David Beckham.
Oh yes, don't you remember it? It was called Anne and David's Saturday Night Kickabout. But listen, I was unhappy about it from the very beginning, because I didn't think they should use the word kickabout in the title, because it seemed to favour David more than me. So I said that to the producers, and they said, well, then Anne, what is your talent that you can match with David's soccer ability? And, well, I thought about that for a bit, and then I had them sacked.
Well, I flatter myself that I can deal with tricky women. I mean, God knows Vicky's a very difficult woman. I mean, she had some pigeons blinded the other day because she thought they were leaking stuff to the press.
I remember my first line was, hello and welcome to Anne and David's Saturday Night Kickabout, a show with more balls than a snooker factory and you know, and then the auto cue kind of froze, and David chipped in and went, scrotum, you know, in that terrible voice.
So suddenly, I'm the bad guy, but that's my training. I've got to get it in. A ball hits the crossbar, you've got to get it in. It's the same as jokes, you know.
We wanted to show some clips from the show, but...
Well, I don't think there's anything left. I think the BBC wiped the tapes. Not surprising, is it?
By the end, the audience were chanting, she's the weakest link, get her off. And the other half were saying, does Posh Spice take it up the arse? Which to this day I don't know. And the rest of them were saying, kick her head off, kick her head off.
And I think some man got about 30 seconds worth on his mobile phone.
And the voices got louder and louder and louder. Kick her head off, kick her head off, kick her head off. I must have blacked out, because the next thing, I'm standing there and I'm kicking her head off.
What happened?
Well, she survived, because all I'd done is kick some surgery off her face.
Do I hear laughter? Is it a party?
2031, the present day. A man wanders dementedly round the bins in downtown Baghdad.
Pudding? Pudding? Not in my name.
He's largely forgotten now.
I frankly don't even remember having my picture taken with the guy. I don't know him.
The war in Iraq is largely forgotten too, since it was soon eclipsed by the 15-year war between America and Syria, Iran, North Korea, China, terrorism and Turkey. Iraq descended into chaos, but no WMD were ever found.
The Americans decided to withdraw from Iraq and invade again with clearer objectives.
قالوا لنا اجبرونا نحط بقنا جنب الشخص اللي جنبك جنب مش عارف اقولها ازاي المخرج بتاعه بقى بقي محطوط جنب الخرج بتاعه يعني القعده هو نايم انا حاطط بقي كده وبعد كده بقى يحطوا بترول في بقنا وبالطريقه دي بقينا عاملين زي خط انابيب بشري.
Not long after Blair left office in 2007, he was heard by friends to say, I'm going to go out there and sort it out myself. He was last seen in Britain in 2009 when former Defence Secretary Jeff Hoon, a deeply unpopular politician at the time, fell ill, and the Queen invited Blair to switch off his life support machines.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Blair was then never seen again, until now.
What most people forget is because weapons of mass destruction were never found. I think they don't exist. But I've never been to Jupiter or Saturn. But I know where they are, and I will find them.
I think that Tony Blair is such a nice man. He makes me want to cover him with feathers, put him in a cage, and feed him seeds.
In the end, we just asked Saddam if he'd like to have it back.
Just stay with us, please, on the line, because in the studio I've got Dr. Hassan Atiyah, who's a former diplomat, and what do you make of this, the flag on the head? Are you offended?
Yes.
Thank you very much indeed.
You worked a lot in coordination with Jack Straw.
Who?
Jack Straw.
Who? Jack Straw.
Who? No, I'm not very good with politicians.
Jack Straw.
Don't recollect, I'm afraid.
Nicklaus, Jack Nicklaus, Straw.
Jack Straw? Nah, it's doing nothing for me.
Jack Straw. Is it gay slang?
This week on Time Trumpet, why Sebastian Coe went to prison for murder. It's 2031 and we've achieved so much we're actually running out of things to do. NASA has just sent a probe up to Mars to find the £5 note they hid there 2 years earlier. Richard Branson's cloned himself to stand at street corners hitting his groin with a hammer just because he could. And David Beckham's decided to turn himself into a centaur.
And then the body of an headless horse was grafted below my spine. Same surgeon that did Victoria's boobs, actually.
But 30 years ago, Britons behaved a lot differently.
Everybody was jacking off. All the time. With their hands. They'd touch it with their hands.
You remember all the celebrity sex tapes? The Abby Titmus, that nurse, Pamela Anderson...
Yeah, Phil Jubitus with Sally Gunnell.
Television in the first part of the 21st century was awash with sex, and behaviour previously thought of as unacceptable now became standard early evening entertainment.
Sally Sunbaba, the Jamaican street prostitute, gets a good start, taking an early lead, followed close by Netchoff, the Russian Tachka girl.
Hardly able to believe my journey may soon be at an end, I sit down and take one last look around. It is a lovely spot for a wank, but I'm still nervous. There's a yacht nearby, and if people had binoculars, they could see me from the opposite coast. Then I think, to hell with it, and I go for my flies. I'm about to begin when I hear a shout from the woods behind me, and I'm forced to abort.
Standards were in decline, and the depravity of television was soon exposed in the series TV Uncovered.
So come on, tell us, who are you going to be tonight?
My name's Ed Blaney, and I appeared on Stars in Their Eyes as David Bowie.
Ed Blaney is David Bowie!
That night, I discovered the lookalikes are not lookalikes at all. It's the biggest and bloodiest scandal in television history.
Stars in Their Eyes was exposed as a sham. One of its contestants revealed that all members of the public who went on it were killed backstage and replaced by the actual stars they were meant to be impersonating.
I was a bit upset that none of the other performers had come to wish me good luck, but as I went back towards the studio to go on, I rounded a corner and bumped into the real David Bowie. Honestly, it was like looking in a mirror. I said, "Oh my God, it's you. I'm your biggest fan." And he just gestured behind him and whispered, "Run." I looked past him and there were men in black with balaclavas putting the body of the Leo Sayle lookalike in a crate. They spotted me and ran towards me, but luckily I was thinking and I yelled, "I'm David Bowie. This is the lookalike, you fools." So they pounced on the real David Bowie, and in the confusion, I was able to escape. Kat Deely came in as I was running out, and she started screaming, "Kill him, kill him. You'll tell the world." I found some stairs and just kept running down and down, out of the car park, tears streaming down my face, so I could barely see where I was going. Every person you've ever seen on that show was slaughtered and replaced by the real stars. And even now, no one believes me. Granada said I must have wandered into a rehearsal for Harry Hill's TV burp. But I know what I saw. I saw death.
I agree with you. I'm sorry, but I do.
With violence on Stars in Their Eyes and sex everywhere else, a moral backlash ensued. Christian pressure groups forced broadcasters to clean up their act, leading to this.
It's a gorgeous colour on you, actually, Grace, if I may say, and the shape is very flattering to you. And of course, Jesus loves a low-cut top, and so do I.
Soon, the BBC became officially Christian.
And I'll be back with the headlines after we've joined our news teams where you are. Amen.
I think that was about the time Nigella Lawson was executed for witchcraft.
Thanks for coming on, Grace, thank you. Next week's guests are the Heathen, Sanjeev Bhaskar, Christ Killer, Paul Simon, and the Sodomite, Ian McKellen. See you then.
But with more revelations from TV uncovered, the religious bubble burst.
The bishop was like a demon in between takes. There was one young girl who got around the throat. He told her, choke or sing, choke or sing. It was a good 20 minutes. They stopped filming before she got her colour back.
In between the takes, the warm-up guy would say a number from 1 to 10. And if you got the corresponding commandment, he threw you a chocolate Jesus.
Yeah, I can remember there's one poor old gentleman. He was forced to give a sample from his catheter bag just to prove he'd been at communion that morning.
We were singing as well as we could, but it was never enough. The producers said that if they could have done it all with computers, then they would have.
Faced with the Asian crisis, then the IT collapse, then a stock exchange crash, a house price bubble, rising world oil prices.
2011 was a time of great hope and optimism, though you wouldn't think that if you listened to the then Prime Minister Gordon Brown.
A doubling, as we've seen, of oil prices, parents struggling, society weakened, culture depleted, prosperity diminished.
In contrast, David Cameron presented a much more appealing image of youth and vitality. Here he is taking the Tories to an Ocean Colour Scene tribute concert.
I was on the breakfast news talking about the overlighting of our cities. And I thought it would get the message home stronger if I painted part of my face blue, like Michael Stipe from R.E.M. Well, that completely backfired. Everybody just kept asking why I painted my face blue. You know, I tried to get them back to the overlighting, but I weren't having any of that.
Cameron was popular because he was young. This was a time when only the young mattered. BBC Three soon launched a competition for sitcoms written by 2-year-olds.
And it was up to then BBC Three controller Stuart Murphy to get in touch with the winner and losers.
Hi, is that James Donahue?
Yeah, hello.
Hi, it's Stuart Murphy, controller of BBC Three.
What do you want, Murphy?
It's a really tough competition, as I'm sure you know. But, you know, I was just calling to tell you, really, that you're the winner.
Yeah, big deal.
Channel 4 retaliated by having its entertainment programmes commissioned by someone who was only 18 months old.
Hello. Let's talk about Big Brother. This year, let's make it much worse. Okay, the sentence. We need new blood. I like the guy from Pop World. Yes, this guy isn't me. Good, get him. Please. 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 Thank you.
Here's one of his successful commissions.
Hello and welcome to the 7th series of My Name is Phil, where I try and dupe unsuspecting members of the public into thinking that my name is Phil. It isn't, it's Will. Hello, my name's Phil. My name's Phil.
Phil. Right, hello Phil.
It isn't, it's Will.
Will!
Hello, my name is Phil.
Hello, Phil.
It's not, my name's Will.
Will!
Hello, my name is Phil.
Hello, Phil.
It's not, it's Will.
That's right. Well, that's better to say something back.
That's kind of it. Phil or Will? Who am I?
Soon the media was flooded by things shot by young people. These included increasingly dangerous stunts. Stupid stuff shot on a mobile phone was all the rage and became more and more elaborate. It was hard then for normal television to compete with this hunger for shocking, quick danger. Some tried. Magic Man David Blaine hooked all his nerve endings up to the internet so he could be controlled online for 40 days by anyone who connected with him. The public killed him in less than 3 seconds.
Still get, sponsorship and so on?
Oh, it's an advertiser's dream. See, aside from Pepsi, mobile phones and sunglasses, I'm now the face of tacking equipment, ketamine and hay.
The thing with Tom Cruise, his contracts became more and more stringent. You weren't allowed to look at him on screen. Mm-hmm. And everyone just had to pretend that he was taller than them, which meant that everyone else on a Tom Cruise set had to basically do the film on their knees. Mm. And so, you couldn't do a chase sequence with him anymore.
I've read every book that's ever been written. Test me.
You'd have a film like MI5 and he would be on the ground, everyone else would be in a ditch, and then have to CGI feet onto them. Mm-hmm. But it just meant everyone's feet were put on at about here.
Mm. They're like Portuguese men. Dark eyes, deep, like a forest. The Portuguese invented printing, invented fireworks. The Portuguese discovered Europe. I bet you've never read that in a history book, and you won't. And you know the reason? Modesty, which I think is the true mark of a man, which is something you better remember the next time you try to jerk with me!
Meanwhile, as an election drew nearer, David Cameron tried harder to appeal to young people.
Cameron kept doing his stunts. He went sledging, he bivouacked. He learnt to make a fishing rod in the woods with Ray Mears. Oh, and he told Richard and Judy how to recycle condoms.
Diana Tinkman succeeded Nick Griffin as head of the BNP in 2010, amid a growth in support for the party.
Some people said that the BNP were racist, but if being racist means a sustained campaign of violence against blacks and Asians, then I'm probably a bit racist as well.
We got round the religious hatred bill. We said things like, all blacks are wicked. And when challenged, we said, well, we're just using the street slang. They're wicked, But then Nick Griffin went on record saying that all of Islam was a bunch of wankers. And he claimed it was Cockney rhyming slang, but he hadn't worked out what for. Crunch of clankers, lunch of bankers. He was still trying to work it out when they sent him down for 7 years. And that's where I came in.
Tinkman relaunched the BNP, emphasising their green policies. She made members look like they cared for the environment by riding around on bikes. It proved a vote winner.
I mean, all of a sudden, BNP weren't just on the right, they were all right.
That is a surprise, because we saw the Harvester beat the living crap out of Swastikon in the semis. Oh, but Jew Hater has his eyes on that record set by Panzer Daddy.
Tinkman realised the BNP had to move away from its bother boy image, which it did by launching its new campaign slogan, "We're not bothered." The comedian Catherine Tate objected to the use of her "I'm not bothered" catchphrase, but soon her house was firebombed.
I actually thought it was very harsh. When they burned Catherine Tate's house down?
Yeah.
At least she was born here.
Her house was burnt down when she said she didn't support our policies. But nothing was ever proved. But a lot of people's houses burnt down who don't like the BNP. It's just one of those things. What can I say? I think fire must like our policies.
I loved Dragon's Den.
Novelty T-shirts. Yes, one's first reaction would be that the market's dead, but ta-da!
So your market is a 60-year-old emphysema sufferer. That's your market.
So it would seem, but observe the humorous twist. Ta-da! A bit of humour I think everyone can get. Any questions?
Why do you ask?
Just in case you had any questions.
Do you know the breathing muscle can be trained during Pilates classes?
Yes, we did, yeah. Any other questions?
I hated Dragon's Den.
The Apprentice, you're fired. It was great. Everyone just going, you're fired. It's great writing on that show. Good incidental music. Sorry, I suddenly just got really depressed.
Well, he shouldn't be, because there were things like Daniel Corbett's Tinkerbell Weather.
Southampton could also be a misty start, particularly as we come to the south and the west, like we saw this morning. 8 for Plymouth.
I think people used to get very disappointed when they met him and his sleeves didn't sparkle, you know? He'd get punched quite a lot over that.
Happens to it through the day, just visiting out the main energy where it goes well east, so it just disappears.
Singapore 2005. And London waits to hear if it's got the 2012 Olympics.
I remember thinking it's taking an age.
Nobody was interested in the Olympics by 2012 anyway. Black people kept winning all the races. And that's another thing. The Olympics totally exposed the hypocrisy of racism. Because how can white people be racist if they're not even winning the races? It's not rocket engineering, is it?
However, as the 2012 Olympics drew nearer, the enthusiasm built up. Preparations were made for a fabulous opening ceremony, including a plan to blow up 150,000 knackered fridges.
There were spectacular plans for that opening ceremony. 10,000 children doing the Ricky Gervais dance.
But alas, despite all the careful preparation, time, money, rehearsal and choreography that had gone into this opening ceremony, it never saw the light of day. 2012, and the night of the opening ceremony. The stadium, for some reason, is empty. And soon Sebastian Coe is approached by a Channel 4 presenter, Justin Lee Collins. Justin Lee Collins, an important entertainer of the time, tells Coe the whole thing has been a hoax. The Olympics went to Paris after all. The whole London thing was a big wind-up by the Friday Night Project.
I don't know how he thought we were going to react. Did he think the whole nation was going to go, good one, you got us, and not want blood?
I can take a joke as much as the next man.
Yeah, yeah.
But then I like the Olympics probably more than any man on earth. But when Justin Lee Collins made a lie and a joke out of it, something inside me snapped and I said, I'm going to kill you, you stupid, ignorant, hairy little shit.
Have you ever been wound up or pranked?
No, I've not ever been wound up or pranked, no. The only thing that's ever happened to me that has made me feel ill at ease in any way is coming here today and finding out that I'd signed something saying that I would have all my hair shaved off. And if that's your idea of a prank, if getting people to sign a contract in which the small print says that they would have their hair shaved off is your idea of a prank, then you have to look at what Justin Lee Collins did, right? Justin Lee Collins fictionalised the location of the Olympics.
Yes.
Which makes this, you getting me to shave my hair off, look a bit of a waste of time, doesn't it? Right? And yet you are supposed to be a programme maker at the cutting edge. You need to take a long, hard look at yourself. One time with hair and a second time with
I'd be
hair.
happy to take a long, hard look at myself.
Well, you should. You should take a long, hard look at yourself.
I'm implying that you wouldn't, in the condition you're in.
This night, however, no one liked being pranked, and Collins was chased by a very angry crowd.
There were thousands of emails from people, and there were some from cabinet ministers and the clergy, all saying the same thing. let's kill the son of a bitch.
Over 1 million members of the public and athletes chased Collins across London. Finally, in a barren wasteland in Shoreditch, a savage crowd, including Jamie Oliver and Natasha Kaplinsky, found Justin Lee Collins wounded and exhausted.
I think you tried to grill him, didn't you?
Yeah, fatty. Not a lot there.
Sebastian Coe insisted he be the one to finish him off with a shovel.
I just went up to a policeman and I said, I'm Sebastian Coe and I've just killed Justin Lee Collins. And he said, sorry, I can't hear what you're saying. I didn't see a thing. Move on, please. Well, after about 10 policemen, I finally found one that agreed to arrest me. Pleaded guilty. I've been here ever since. But I understand that when I do get out, I won't have to buy another drink or pay for a taxi again.
I visit Seb usually about once a month. You'd think an ex-Tory MP called Sebastian would be a real shower room frig puppet in prison, but no. They all call him Mr. Coe and he gets anything he wants.
Vernon Kay kept growing. I mean, he was really tall, and it got to the stage where they were having to scale up his dressing room to make him feel less bad and less self-conscious. But, I mean, if you're doing a game show and you're looking at a $250,000 bill just to get him through the door, it's very hard to keep him in work.
He's always been tall, he'd always been a tall man. So for a long time, people were able to say, no, he looks enormous, but actually that's just, and a big personality as well, and he's a very energetic man. And then, of course, people started getting incontrovertible evidence, like he stepped on a couple of people.
He got very cranky and bad-tempered as a result of the stretching, and his skin became very thin, like tracing paper.
I suppose what everyone remembers is when he blotted out the sun. And again, those famous photos of the dark, sort of this bleak, almost post-nuclear landscape. With the Vernon Winter, with this gigantic... Yeah, everyone was trying to... All the papers were trying to do puns about like vernal equinox, but with no one could quite nail it. It's probably because everyone was too frightened to think of puns, really.
While I regret the fact that he had to be destroyed, I wish it just could have been done more humanely. He was not a bad man, he was just tall.
The 2012 general election, and David Cameron is elected Prime Minister. But the biggest upset was that the BNP came second.
All of a sudden, racism was the new black.
The BNP were using very sophisticated marketing strategies at this time to make themselves more acceptable. Like that competition where they had to complete the phrase, I'm not racist, but ... in 10 words or less. Now, I don't think all the people who entered that competition proves that Britain is becoming more racist. I think it was just a really good prize. So Wickenock Castle.
Cameron, young and naive, was actually one of the most terrible prime ministers we've ever had, and lasted only 20 days. He legislated for all drink to be accessed via a solicitor.
Just a pint of London Pride, a dry white wine and a packet of pistachios, please.
Right, I'll get onto that right away. We should have that ready for you in about 2 to 3 minutes.
He said it would be a good idea to have surgeons wear photo masks of themselves so that patients would find being operated on more reassuring. And he thought it would help race relations if the BBC put on a show called The Black and Asian Minstrel Show.
Even though the show was conceived, like Love Thy Neighbour, for example, with the best will in the world, I think ultimately it did more harm than good, and certainly the riots that followed the first broadcast and the thousands of deaths in multiracial communities across urban Britain would seem to bear that out.
Were you affected by it?
No. No, I didn't personally find it offensive because I don't have any black or Asian friends.
I mean, some of the programme makers and indeed the people that commissioned it did go to prison.
Some of them went to prison, some of them were killed, and some of them did the decent thing and took their own lives.
In power, Cameron's behaviour grew increasingly erratic. He poured party money into a Tory television channel.
Now, we're also going to take off quite a lot of the hair. We're going to squint the eye. We're going to employ a chin brace, which will give that receding jaw look. The eyeballs will have to be inverted before reseating in the sockets.
He lashed out against his opponents on live television.
It's those cuts that I'm determined we should stop, and I'll be joining campaign groups like the one here today up and down the country to draw attention to these cuts and say...
One of his aides came up to me and said, if I go to the police, he will kill my family.
And finally, he committed the dreadful, hideous act that he's now very famous for.
I think the shocking thing was it was in a church. At least I think that's where it started.
I mean, he must have been planning it for months. It was sort of balletic.
I don't know what was worse, the sight, the sound, or the smell.
I just felt sorry for the people in the front row because they got a face full of it.
I mean, things were calming down between the Muslims and the West, and he goes and does something like that.
I felt sorry for Mingus Campbell because he tried to stop him, but it looked like he was joining in.
Yeah, even to this day, nothing will grow on that ground.
Cameron was forced to call another election.
His manifesto was a blank page with the words "Time to Dream" written at the top.
His first party political broadcast left everyone baffled.
About what people's experiences have been and the relationships that people have, whether they've been born, whether they've been in the army or whatever, they went into politics.
Ever I saw your
face. And the relationships that people have. You have France, which has don't let the
I thought the sun rose in your eyes.
Now, would you mind just trying on those specs for me? What do you think?
Good, very good.
You like it? So, a good start. Let's see. Will it or won't it?
Cameron was doing badly. The Tories were trailing the BNP. Everything now hung on his eve of poll rally.
Things can only get better. Better. Now that I've found you. Things can only get better. Better. Now that I've found you.
Cameron was sacked on the spot.
People still remember you as one of the shortest-lived prime ministers of all time.
Yes, well, 20 days is a long time in politics. It's the equivalent of 480 hours, which sounds a lot longer than it actually is.
The next day, the BNP was the largest party in a hung parliament. BNP leader Diana Tinkman now had to choose between Conservative or Labour for a coalition.
It was really hard to choose. It's like if you're in a room with Dermot O'Leary, Jamie Theakston, Patrick Kilty, and you got a shotgun and 2 cartridges. What do you do? You empty 2 barrels into Kilty and then have fun with the rifle butt.
Take 2.
I feel we will. Yeah. Yeah. This is Home Shopping Bacon, where last year we delivered 5 million rashers. That sounds impressive, but there's plenty more still to come. Today, an array for you, an array of prices. You can afford the bacon that I've got today. A lot of people tune into this channel and think, that's some pretty premium stuff. I won't be able to afford it. You can. Quick whiz through, and I'll go through it in detail in a second. I've got the smoky and the street on this side. That goes at a really low price. We've bought a lot of that stuff, and we've brought it in from Denmark as well. Over here, it's your homegrown stuff, if you like. Your homegrown oikers. from Wiltshire. Over here, we'll be doing the back bacon. Think meaty texture, think juicy, think almost a little bit of fat just dribbling down there. You can see it now, and we'll be back to it shortly. Over here, this is paler stuff, but it does darken up when it gets on the grill. And I don't know whether you've still got one, and this is talking nostalgia now, but do you remember the George Foreman grill? A lot of people don't have them anymore. They've been going for some big prices recently. You put one of these fellas on a George Foreman grill, and now we're talking lunchtime. But I'll start with what I've got right in front of me here, and I'll pop one of these little fellas just over my hand. Let me tell you, if you go down the high street, you're looking for certain things. Jewellery, for instance. You're looking for diamonds. It's the 4 C's that are very important. What's the carat weight like? What's it cut like inside? Bacon, exactly the same. When you get your bacon, if normally you go to a butcher's, they don't tell you this kind of stuff, but I'm going to tell it you now, and prices for this coming up at the bottom of the screen now. If you want to buy it, remember we delivered 5 million rashers last year alone. We are the big one. So what are you looking for? A couple of important things. In here, you need the right cut of fat. Now, with the naked eye, it's very difficult to tell what the right cut of fat is. But if you get very close on that there, you'll see just little thin veins of fat. You want the taste? You've got to have the fat. There's no choice in this. If you get bacon, you look at it close up, and I know a lot of people do this, they'll get right down there and they'll look at it like that when they're in the high street and in the supermarkets. And what are they doing? They're looking for the quality. They're looking for the fat veins in there. Now, that's what gives it the taste. You mix that with a little brown sauce, but I've got a better idea. I've got a better idea. This stuff's starting to sell out now. 3/4 of the stock of that has already gone. If you want it, you must call now for that straight away. But I promised you this, didn't I? I promised you this over here. And let me take a very thin, I hope you don't mind. Oh, this is the, look at this. This is the beauty. Right, now, what was I talking about before? The fat. Look at that. Now that really is back of the bacon net, isn't it? Look at that there. Now, here's an idea. It's Sunday morning. You've got wholemeal bread. It's fresh, beautiful. You get it out, you put a very thin layer of butter on it. Butter, remember that? You've been on that margarine stuff for years thinking it was healthy. Forget it. You get the butter on, and now a little Dijon mustard. Oh, a big cuppa on a Sunday morning, the Sunday papers, and that. Premium grade from Denmark, shipped in. But not at a price to you. You'll have seen the details change at the bottom of the screen. How's about that? We can do you 1 pack or multiples of 10, and we'll deliver it direct to you during about 5 days. That stuff there is Danish, but if you're saying no, I stand up for what's British. Hey, so do we here at Home Shopping Bacon as well. Let me take you over to this side, because this is what we call down the dog and duck, a big old unit. This is a fat boy. Oh, hey, now, Monday morning, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning or Thursday. If it's Friday morning, I don't care. What I want is a fat boy in my mouth. Now, I've got it here and I've got it now. This is from Wiltshire. You've seen them, I've seen them. When you're driving down the road and you glance out of the car and the kids are saying, "Daddy, Daddy, what's that over there?" I'm saying to you, that is a big oinker. That's one from Wiltshire. We'll be chewing down on that shortly, and have a look at this, because here it is. I was talking about the fat before. Oh no, threaded through there. It feels a little slimy to the touch, and so it should. So it should. When you get it out, you rub it. You rub it like that, eh? Now, when I'm rubbing it on the back of my hand, there's a certain sensuality to what I'm rubbing. It feels good. You want to try this yourself. Never mind cooking it. But if you've got any sort of ailments, I'll tell you, this sort of thing, a lot of people swear by it now. Open cuts and sores, bang a bit of the Wiltshire fella on there. That could sort you out. Price at the bottom of the screen. You can get it now. Going cheap, I think you'll agree. There's no messing about. Remember what I said at the start. We delivered last year over 5 million rashers of bacon.